everyone, Novels Wonderland here. Thank you all for the love and support you've shown me and the channel.
Reincarnated as a mimic, I bit Frieren. Chapter 38 to 58, Chapter 38, Frieren's weakness. The final decision was made. Frieren, and Sense would enter the inner gate to suppress the clones, facing off against the two powerful magical copies. Meanwhile, those outside would coordinate to intercept the other clones that were constantly closing in. The heavy stone door was slowly pushed open, and a dense wave of mana rushed out. The interior was a circular underground space. Fluorescent stones on the walls emitted a glow, illuminating two figures in the center. Clone Frieren floated in the air, her long gray hair fluttering despite the lack of wind, her eyes cold and devoid of emotion. Clone Sense stood in the middle of the area. Her magically infused long hair blotted out the sun, twisting and coiling like countless gray snakes that covered the perimeter, casting the entire space into shadow. Mass attack magic. Frieren was the first to strike, without the slightest hesitation. A mass of pitch-black mana condensed at the tip of her staff, resembling a concentrated black hole. Carrying a terrifying weight, it shot straight toward Clone Frieren. Clone Frieren raised her hand and deployed defense magic, yet the mass of black mana ground against the barrier and shattered it instantly. The moment the dust exploded, countless twisting gray hairs suddenly lunged out. Like a sturdy shield, they stood firmly in front of Clone Frieren, completely neutralizing the power of the mass attack magic. It was Clone Sense who had intervened. The two of them working together is truly troublesome, Ren remarked in a low voice. He quietly stepped back, melting into the shadows at the edge of the arena. He was all too familiar with this. When facing powerful enemies with Frieren, if a direct confrontation wouldn't work, the natural solution was a sneak attack. He suppressed his mana entirely, waiting in the wings for his opportunity. Ren hid himself within the shadows, focusing all his effort on restraining his mana, as he waited for a chance to strike. Clone Sense's long hair lunged toward Frieren, as if it were alive. Every strand of hair contained powerful mana, slashing, binding, and piercing with an intensity that left no room to breathe. Frieren dodged nimbly, her staff continuously firing offensive magic to clash with the black hair. Sense joined the fray as well. Her hair intertwined with the clone's long hair, tearing and devouring each other in an utterly chaotic scene. "I'll handle my own clone, you go take care of yours," Sense shouted to Frieren while defending. I suppose fighting myself will be quite interesting." Frieren dodged a piercing strand of hair and fired a curved offensive magic bolt back at Clone Frieren, which the latter easily avoided. Ren lurked in the shadows, his gaze fixed intensely on the battle. He was waiting for a single opportunity, the moment both clones fully committed to attacking Frieren and Sense, they would inevitably show an opening. Ren gripped his broad-bladed straight sword tightly, quietly channeling his sword magic. Two mana-formed flying swords condensed in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to deliver a lethal blow. Clone Frieren suddenly unleashed a wide-range offensive magic. Countless blue pillars of light poured down from the air, covering more than half the arena. Frieren and Sense were forced to deploy defense magic. Their barriers shuddered violently under the bombardment of the light pillars, their glow flickering intermittently. Now! A sharp light flashed in Ren's eyes. He instantly activated Shrinking Ground, his figure appearing out of thin air behind Clone Frieren. In its place came a flash strike. The explosive power of the combat technique was pushed to its limit as the longsword carried a fierce wind pressure, slashing directly toward Clone Frieren's back. Simultaneously, the two flying mana swords shot toward Clone Sense's head like two streaks of light to divert her attention. Clone Frieren reacted with extreme speed, twisting her body to avoid her vitals. She erected an instantaneous defense magic, but the barrier, unable to fully manifest in time, crumbled upon contact. The clone was still struck, a deep wound opening from the longsword, and gray mana gushed out from the gash. She turned to look at Ren, a cold glint flashing in her eyes as she fired an offensive magic bolt back at him. Ren was prepared. He activated high-speed movement magic, his figure instantly flashing backward. While evading the attack, he fired his own offensive magic, returning the favor with a blue-white beam directed at clone Frieren. A portion of clone Sense's hair also detached from the main battle, coiling toward Ren. A smirk played on Ren's lips as he activated earth manipulation magic. A wall of earth suddenly protruded from the ground. While blocking the hair, he used the earth wall to obscure his movements and activated shrinking ground once more, appearing behind clone Sense and thrusting his sword toward her neck. Clang, sparks flew as clone Sense's hair surged in to protect her. Even with his sword's sharpness enhanced by sword magic, it was still unable to cut through her hair. For a moment, the life and death struggle within the inner gate reached a fever pitch due to Ren's ambushes. The mana turbulence in the underground space became increasingly violent, each magical collision carrying a sharp whistle that seemed to tear the air. At the tip of Frieren's staff, a fiery red spell condensed like a singularity, spinning like a concentrated demon eye and emitting a terrifying gravitational pull. She slammed it toward the clone, resulting in a dull boom. The shockwave plowed several deep furrows into the ground, sending stone fragments flying. Clone Frieren's counterattack was equally fierce. Blue ordinary offensive magic fell as thick as a rain of arrows. When they collided with Frieren's defensive barrier, the resulting sparks of mana were like meteors streaking across the dark blue space. The struggle between Sense and clone Sense's hair was even more brutal. Countless strands of black hair pierced like steel needles and bound like chains, emitting the ear-piercing sound of grinding metal wherever they clashed. Sense's hair suddenly surged, transforming into several thick hair pythons that slammed violently into the clone. The clone, in turn, wove her hair into a massive shield. While blocking the impact, she fired countless fine hairs like poisonous needles. They grazed Sense's mage robes and left dense clusters of needle holes in the walls. Both sides were consuming mana rapidly. The luster of their hair gradually dimmed, and the frequency of their attacks slowed by half a beat. They were clearly approaching exhaustion. Ren remained submerged in the shadows, his fingertips pressed against his cool staff as he felt the steady flow of mana within his body. His gaze was locked onto clone Frieren, his pupils dilating and contracting with her every move. Whether it was the arc of her hand when casting or the rhythm of her mana accumulation, it was identical to the original Frieren. Even the minute pause before releasing magic was exactly the same. Though you might not have noticed, ever since I began teaching Frieren, she has had a fatal problem that she hasn't overcome even now. The voice of the back spirit, Flam, suddenly rang in his ear, carrying a hint of distant nostalgia. Could it be? A fragment of the original story flashed through Ren's mind. Frieren had been the one to capture this flaw originally, but his intervention had disrupted the plot, causing everyone to overlook it. The moment Frieren uses magic, there is an interruption in her mana detection. Flam's gaze fell on the center of the battlefield, watching Frieren unleash a judgment bolt once more. That gap is so vast that ordinary people cannot perceive it. But even after 1,000 years, she still hasn't corrected it. Thanks. A brilliant light burst from Ren's eyes. The mana within his body began to surge instantly, pushing his level 5 offensive magic to its absolute limit. Ordinary offensive magic was the fastest. The blue-white light at the tip of his staff grew brighter and brighter, yet he wrapped it in layers of mana to ensure not a single ripple leaked out. What he was waiting for was that split-second flaw. Up to 50 chapters on P at Frieren, https://www.patreon.com/c/biggetl. Chapter 39, Understanding the Last 1%. 1,284 words. The battle had reached a fever pitch of stagnation. Frieren and her clone simultaneously unleashed their full power, two orbs of pitch-black mass magic colliding violently in the center of the arena. Boom! A monstrous shockwave swept across the floor, sending rubble flying into the air as turbulent mana distorted the very atmosphere. At the exact moment of the collision, Ren caught a microscopic stutter in the mana fluctuations surrounding the Frieren clone. It was the precise instant her mana detection was interrupted. Now! Ren lunged out of the shadows, thrusting his staff forward. Several beams of blue-white light, condensed to their absolute limit, shot out like piercing arrows. The light pillars tore through the violent air currents with a sharp whistle, striking the Frieren clone with pinpoint accuracy. Smoke and dust instantly exploded, swallowing her figure. Debris and shards of gray mana mingled together, saturating the air. But as the dust settled, a pair of gray eyes appeared in Ren's field of vision. Crap! Alarm bells rang in Ren's mind. A scene from the original story flashed through his brain, the moment the Frieren clone, on the brink of death, unleashed that sudden mana shockwave from her eyes. He instinctively activated ground shrink, intending to teleport away, but he was half a beat too late. An invisible torrent of mana slammed into Ren's abdomen like a heavy sledgehammer. He felt his internal organs churn, a sweet metallic taste rose in his throat, and blood sprayed from his mouth. The clothes over his stomach were scorched black by the invisible impact, and a searing sting radiated from his skin. But he didn't pause for a second. Gritting his teeth, he forced himself to stay focused. Ground shrink activated again, and his figure reappeared out of thin air directly behind the Frieren clone. By now, the clone was at the end of her rope. A massive hole had been blasted through her chest by the light pillars, and gray mana was leaking out uncontrollably. Ren gripped his longsword, the veins in his arm bulging. He swung down with everything he had. The sword carved a sharp arc through the air, cleanly severing the clone's neck. The head separated from the body, and the gray mana form disintegrated like bursting bubbles, vanishing into the air as a cloud of ash. With the fall of the Frieren clone, the mana suppression over the treasure vault abruptly vanished. Ren's mana detection spread out like a rising tide, instantly touching the core in the depths of the vault. Without hesitation, he activated ground shrink once more, his body passing through the wall to appear inside a treasury overflowing with riches. Gold coins were piled into small mountains, and exquisite artifacts reflected a dazzling light. In the center of the treasure sat a diamond-shaped gemstone with a metallic frame, radiating a purple glow as it floated quietly. This was the true body of the Spiegel, the water mirror demon. Ren didn't hesitate. He thrust his sword straight in, the hard texture of the gem transmitting through his fingertips. As the blade sank deep, the purple light receded like a retreating wave. Fine cracks spread across the surface of the gem until it finally shattered with a loud crack, dissolving into countless points of light. The moment the gem shattered, a faint red glow lit up in its place. It was a treasure box the size of a pillow, its body woven from solidified red light with intricate crimson patterns flowing over the surface. Mana seemed to pulse slowly within those patterns, emitting a strange vibration that was of the same origin as the Spiegel but far more pure. It was a red-quality treasure box. Ren leaned against a nearby chest, coughing up a mouthful of stagnant blood. He quickly activated priest magic. A pale green light enveloped his body, gradually easing the agonizing pain in his gut and slowly knitting his wounds back together. Once his breathing stabilized, he reached out and touched the box. It opened silently, and the red light flowed out like liquid, condensing into an irregular crystal. Water mirror magic, source fragment. Quality, red. Effect, consume mana to create a perfect clone of a single target. The clone possesses all the skills, combat instincts, and attributes of the target, but lacks a heart, functioning only as a precision mimic. It will automatically regenerate after being defeated. This effect can only be assigned to a single individual, multiple clones cannot be created simultaneously. Origin, H07 World, Ruins of the King's Tomb, Spiegel. Ren shook his head with a touch of regret. It was a shame it didn't work on groups. Likely, because he hadn't cleared the dungeon alone, the effect from the box was incomplete. Still, being able to create a clone with full strength was an incredibly powerful skill. He tucked the crystal away and turned around just as Frieren pushed the door open. So you beat it. Frieren brushed the dust off her clothes. There were still traces of gray mana ash clinging to the tears in her mage robes. You move pretty fast, Ren, she remarked, though her eyes were already glued to a nearby treasure chest. Her feet began to shuffle toward it involuntarily. She gave a casual wave of her hand, sending a pale blue detection spell over the chest. It clearly signaled that the chest was a mimic. But Frieren didn't stop. Instead, she sped up, reaching out to flip the lid. Don't. The detection results are already out, Ren advised instinctively. Detection magic only has a 99% probability of being correct, Frieren replied without looking back, her eyes shining with an obsession for grimoires. It is precisely because there are great mages who can see through that remaining 1% that historical discoveries are made. There's no mistake. There's a rare grimoire inside. My experience as a mage is telling me. Before she could finish, her fingers touched the latch. Ren and the newly arrived Zens shared a look, both seeing the same helplessness in each other's eyes. Click. The moment the latch snapped open, the lid flew up. A tongue shot out like a spring, accurately wrapping around Frieren's wrist and yanking her forward. MMPH. Frieren let out a short cry of surprise as she was hauled in. The lid snapped shut over her waist, leaving only her legs kicking outside as she wailed. It's so dark. It's so scary. Frieren's legs flailed about, her black tights rubbing against the edges of the box. Zens massaged her forehead, her tone weary. Even though she knew it was a mimic. Ren walked over and tapped the wooden shell of the chest. Lady Frieren, do you need help? Frieren's muffled voice came from inside, push me from behind. In times like this, you just have to push inward. The mimic will feel like it wants to throw up and give up on biting me. You should understand that very well, Ren. I told you, you were the first person I ever bit back then, Ren muttered, rubbing his forehead before stepping up to help. With the clones outside having vanished, the group gathered in the depths. Zens announced that everyone present had passed. In the end, 11 people qualified: Frieren, Fern, Ren, Method, Denken, Richter, Laufen, Land, Werbel, Scharf, and Air. Ren noticed a particular gaze and turned to see Land. Land didn't say anything, he just adjusted his glasses. Ren gave him a brief glance and looked away. It was just a clone, after all. Walking out of the king's tomb, the sunlight spilled over them, chasing away the subterranean chill. Up to 50 chapters on P at Frieren, https://www.patreon.com/c/biggetl. Chapter 40, Method. 1,318 words. Ren found Frieren and Fern to give a simple farewell. I'll attend the subsequent exams on time. After the first class mage exam is over, I'll likely be leaving this place. Frieren looked up at the news. Leaving again? Well, all right then. Fern frowned. You won't be coming with us to the northern plateau. You aren't going to Endi. No. I have other things to attend to. Ren smiled, then turned to leave side by side with Method. The nights in the Magic City were far livelier than the days. Magic lamps along the streets cast a soft glow, illuminating the cobblestone paths as if it were daylight. Stalls lining the roads were filled with curious magical trinkets and fragrant snacks, while vendors shouted, selling candies that glowed in the dark. Outside the distant Magic Theater, massive phantom posters hovered in the air, drawing the attention of passers-by. Ren and Method strolled together through the streets. They didn't talk about battle or the future, they simply chatted about the scenery along the way. Method pointed toward a shop hung with grimoires, her eyes sparkling. I didn't have time to go into that shop last time I was here. I heard they have many lost demon hunting journals. Ren accompanied her inside, watching her weave through the bookshelves. Her fingertips brushed lightly over the yellowed pages, her face filled with pure passion. They tried meat skewers from a street stall, the spicy sauce mixing with the tender meat to create an explosion of flavor on their tongues. They bought a magical lantern that changed color according to one's mood. The soft pink light it emitted stretched their shadows long against the ground. Along the way, they encountered a street performer doing fire magic. Ren watched with great interest and even tried to mimic the movements with his own fire magic, but his control lacked precision, leaving him a bit soot-faced and making Method burst into laughter. As the night deepened, they found themselves back at the inn. The room was simply decorated. A magical plant sat by the window, emitting a faint light as moonlight spilled across the floor. Ren sat on the edge of the bed, watching Method organize her demon-hunting tools. He suddenly spoke. "Method, once the first-class mage exam is over, I will be leaving for good. I probably won't ever come back." Method's movements paused. When she turned around, there wasn't a trace of surprise on her face. Instead, a beautiful smile graced her lips. She walked slowly over to Ren, her fingertips tracing his cheek with a slightly cool touch. Before Ren could react, she suddenly leaned forward and pushed him back onto the bed. Her hair fell forward, brushing against his neck. "Some things shouldn't be said like that." Method placed a finger against Ren's lips. Her voice was soft, yet carried a hint of resolve. "My life is destined to be dedicated to the cause of hunting demons, traveling to every corner of the continent to slay the monsters that threaten humanity. But in a life like that, to have met you during this time, to have fought with you and played with you, I am already satisfied. Though it would have been even better if you were a bit smaller." She raised her hands to shed her restraints, revealing the simplicity beneath. The moonlight outlined her sharp, tight curves. The magic lamps in the room flickered, pink shadows dancing across her body as the atmosphere of spring quietly filled the room. Ren reached out, gently pulling her close. The faint scent of herbs clung to her, and the crisp clarity of the moonlight seemed to shine directly into his heart. There was no need for further words, only the intertwining of their souls. As the night grew thicker, the sound of breathing in the room mingled with the chirping of insects outside, composing a gentle nocturne. The faint light of the magical plant swayed, reflecting their silhouettes and freezing this moment of warmth and longing forever in the night of the magic city. Morning light filtered through the inn's sheer curtains, casting dappled shadows on the floor. Method woke up slowly. The bed beside her was already cool. Her heart tightened and she sat up abruptly. She saw Ren sitting at the table by the window. In front of him was the breakfast sent up by the inn, warm milk, soft bread, and pastries dotted with berries. He was holding a grimoire, his gaze focused. The morning sun fell upon his silver hair, giving it a soft, radiant sheen. "You woke up so early," Method said, her voice carrying a trace of relief she didn't realize she felt. Ren looked up and smiled. "Go wash up and come eat. It'll be cold soon." Method felt a surge of warmth. She hurried to the washroom. After a quick cleanup, they sat opposite each other, sharing breakfast and chatting about tomorrow's exam. Method was inevitably a bit nervous, her fingers unconsciously fidgeting with the edge of her clothes. "I heard the third stage is very strict. Do I have a chance?" "Don't worry. Just perform as you usually do," Ren said, putting down his glass with a certain tone. "Your strength is more than enough." He already knew the plot. Method would pass smoothly, so there was naturally no need for concern. The two spent the day relaxing. The following morning, they headed to the Continental Magic Association together. By now, many candidates had gathered outside the association. Their expressions varied, some were nervous, others expectant. Flam floated in the air behind Ren, her hands unconsciously clenched together, her expression somewhat bashful. 1,000 years had passed in the blink of an eye. Now that she was about to see her master, Ciri, her heart was full of trepidation. "I'm really going to see Master." Back then, I had Frieren deliver my will, telling her that I had the human king allow the whole race to study magic. I thought she would be angry at my presumption. But now, she has actually founded the Continental Magic Association. Was I overthinking it back then, or has she finally acknowledged me? After all these years, will she still remember me? Ren felt her melancholy and communicated through his mind. Asterisk, don't worry. Ciri remembers every single one of her disciples, asterisk. Is there anything you want me to tell her, or tell Frieren? Asterisk, this is the last chance. After I see her, it's about time for me to leave this world, asterisk. Asterisk once the mission is complete, it's over. The voice in your head should have already prompted you, asterisk. Flam was silent for a moment, her voice carrying a hint of hesitation. I don't know. Let's wait until I see Master. As time passed, the third exam officially began. The candidates were summoned one by one into the interview room, while those who failed left with disappointment on their faces. Finally, it was Ren's turn. He took a deep breath and pushed open the door to the interview room. The room was simply furnished. Beside a central pool, a yellow-haired woman was crouching, observing the fish in the water. She wore a pure white robe over shorts, and her inner tunic was fastened with an oval emerald. She radiated a gentle yet incredibly powerful mana fluctuation. It was Ciri. Hearing the footsteps, Ciri stood up. Her gaze landed on Ren, and a flash of interest crossed her eyes. Oh? An elf. Only 100 or so years old. I didn't expect to see such a young member of our kin. She walked over slowly, her eyes scanning Ren as if sensing his mana. Ren could clearly feel the violent emotional fluctuations from Flam behind him, a complex mix of excitement, nervousness, and filial devotion. Just then, the notification from the Convergence world rang in his head. Meet Master Ciri, 1-to-1. Up to 50 chapters on P at Frieren, https://www.patreon.com/c/bigtl. Chapter 41, Chapter 41, Any Magic Available. 1199 words. Task completed. You will return and evacuate in 24 hours. You may also evacuate immediately. Evacuate now. No, Ren mentally selected the option, redirecting his focus to Ciri. I heard about you from Jano, Ciri said, her tone carrying a hint of appreciation. To possess such strength after only 100 years or so, you have talent. Become my apprentice. I'm afraid I can't do that, Ren replied slowly, his voice calm. He could hear Flam's hurried whispers in his ear. Because someone told me that by following me, she saw her dreams come true. She saw that Frieren has people to take care of her, and she saw that her master is doing well. She is satisfied with everything. Ciri's gaze sharpened. She raised a hand to cast a detection spell, light swirled around Ren, yet she perceived nothing. You had better explain yourself, she said, her brow furrowing slightly. It seems the soul is truly a fleeting, ethereal thing. Ren offered no further explanation. Oh? Interesting. Ciri fell silent for a moment, her tone softening. Then tell her that she was merely an apprentice I trained on a whim. There is no need for her to linger. Let her rest in peace. She paused, her voice so soft it was nearly lost to the wind, and tell her. I am proud of her. Ah, she's listening. Ren looked at the tearful Flam behind him. Her spirit was gradually becoming transparent amidst the light. She has been here the whole time. Ciri said nothing more. She gave a dismissive wave, and turned her back to him. You pass. Next. Her voice sounded slightly strained. Ren smiled faintly, turned, and walked out of the room. The moment he stepped through the door, the spirit behind him dissipated completely. Flam's presence could no longer be sensed. The task was finished. She had finally let go of her 1,000-year obsession. In the association hall, Ren found Metadid waiting. He smiled and gave her a pass gesture. It went smoothly. It should be your turn soon. Good luck. Joy flashed in Metadid's eyes, and she nodded vigorously. That's wonderful. I knew you could do it. Not long after, Metadid also passed her interview, her face beaming with excitement. Once everything concluded, the two walked out of the Continental Magic Association side by side. It was already dusk, and the setting sun bathed the magic city in a layer of warm gold. Just then, a sudden commotion erupted at the association entrance, drawing everyone's attention. Ren turned to look and saw the first-class mage learn holding his staff, actually launching an attack at Frieren. A black beam of magic shot straight toward Frieren, wounding her. Watching the farce, Ren couldn't help but sigh. Ciri was just like Flam, both were complicated, stubborn people. For her to have praised Flam earlier must have been incredibly difficult for her. In the distance, Frieren wasn't angry. She held Fern and the others back. Ren didn't step in to interfere, he simply watched quietly. "Let's go. This is my last day here," Ren said softly, taking Metadid's hand. Metadid nodded and the two disappeared into the crowd. Under the setting sun, their shadows stretched long behind them. The next day, Ren organized all the treasures recognized by the collision world that he intended to take back. Together with Metadid, he headed to the Continental Magic Association. Today was the day the first-class mage privileges were granted. Any magic at all. I wonder if this one is possible. Ren looked at the waiting room ahead, his eyes filled with anticipation. Earlier that morning, before the dawn light had fully chased away the mist over the magic city, Ren had finished packing his gear. He carried the hero's sword on his back. Several purple-quality magic items and over 100 blue treasures were packed into multiple spatial bags, hanging from his person in a way that looked somewhat cumbersome. At noon, he did a final sweep of his room. Confirming nothing was left behind, he turned and walked toward the association. One of the privileges of a first-class mage was the opportunity to learn a single spell from the founder of the Continental Magic Association, Ciri. This was Ren's final goal for this journey. Stepping into the interview room once again, he found Ciri sitting on a cushion by the window, idly twirling a strand of her hair. Seeing Ren laden with luggage, she raised an eyebrow. "Fellow elf, have you looted a treasury?" "I've had a decent harvest, so it's a bit inconvenient to carry," Ren smiled as he approached. "I heard that a first-class mage can ask you for any one spell. Is it true that it can be anything?" Ciri wore a look of disdain, her tone arrogant. "Naturally. Though most of you little ones only ask for attack or defense spells. Quite boring. In that case, if I asked for the future sight magic once possessed by the hero of the South, would that be possible?" Ren asked calmly. Ciri's hand stopped mid-twirl. Her arrogance vanished instantly, replaced by a serious gaze. "Oh? You certainly know a lot." She crossed her legs, her tone carrying a hint of nostalgia. "The magic to peer into the future is indeed powerful. The hero of the South used it to create countless legends. But in the end, he was trapped by the very future he saw, unable to break free." She shook her head. "Choose another. My kin truly are troublesome." Ren had expected this and nodded, gesturing to the various bags of treasure he was lugging. "Then please teach me a spatial magic that allows me to carry many things with me. As you can see, this is quite inconvenient." A glint of amusement appeared in Ciri's eyes. "Coincidentally, I do happen to have such an ancient spell. Aside from me, it has likely been lost to the rest of the continent for ages." With a wave of her hand, a burst of pale gold mana flowed into Ren's mind. "This magic is called space creation. It must be bound to one's own soul and uses spatial attribute items as anchors. The higher the quality of the anchor, the larger the space created." A familiar prompt immediately rang out in Ren's mind. "Notification, Ciri has taught you the ancient magic space creation. Learn it. Yes/no. Yes. Skill learned successfully. Space creation LV.1, bind an anchor to the soul to create an independent space. Can store non-living objects. Space size depends on anchor quality. Currently no anchor bound. Spatial capacity, 1 cubic meter." Knowledge regarding the laws of space flooded his consciousness. Ren could clearly sense a faint spatial node deep within his soul. He only needed to inject mana to bind an anchor to expand it. Ren was delighted, this was exactly what he needed. "Thank you," Ren said with a bow. Ciri waved him off. Learned it in an instant, eh? You have quite the talent. Unfortunately, my recent attempts at taking disciples haven't gone well. No matter. It was a simple task. Just don't come back to bother me again. Up to 50 chapters on P at Frieren, https://www.patreon.com/c/biggetl. Chapter 42, Evacuation Settlement, a Major Bounty. 1,345 words. Leaving the interview room, Ren found Metadid waiting in the association hall. He informed her that he had learned the spatial magic and gave her a serious warning. I'm leaving now. Be careful when you hunt monsters. Remember to replenish your mana potions on time. If you encounter a monster you can't handle, avoid it. Don't try to be a hero. Reluctance flickered in Metadid's eyes, but she nodded with a smile. I know. Take care of yourself too. She reached out and hugged Ren. I wish you a smooth journey ahead. Ren nodded and walked toward Frieren, Fern, and Stark. The three were huddled together discussing their next travel route. Seeing Ren approach, Fern was the first to speak. Ren, are you leaving? Yes, it's time to go. Ren looked at Frieren. I'll leave Fern and Stark in your care. Frieren closed the grimoire in her hands, her tone flat. Don't worry. They can already hold their own. She paused, then added, if you get the chance, remember to come back and visit. Stark scratched his head, looking a bit sheepish. Ren, thanks for taking care of me before. I'll become even braver in the future. Ren smiled, waved goodbye to the three, and walked toward the open space outside the association. The time was up, 24 hours. Ren turned into a streak of light and vanished, causing Frieren to look over in deep thought. Collision World H07, evacuation successful. Beginning settlement. Highlights: assisted in defeating the Mirror Demon, obtained 1,060 points, participated in, and passed the first-class mage exam, obtained 1,000 points, completed special task Flam's Wish, obtained 300 points. Total points after cumulative tallies, 3,980 points. Treasures obtained: Hero's Sword, red, exchangeable for 3,060 points. Recognition required to unlock all effects. Purple quality items times 5, total exchange value 1,042 points. Blue quality items times 132, total exchange value 7,848 points. Looking at the massive list of treasures in his mind, a smile spread across Ren's face. If he chose to exchange everything, including his previous points, he would immediately have over 17,500 points. However, his connections with the Bloodfight Society would come in handy here. These blue and purple treasures would surely sell for much more in the entrance circles of the real world than the system's buyback price. Not to mention the red tier Hero's Sword, items of this class couldn't be measured purely by points, they were best used for bartering. Bloodline, Elf H07, 860 points, exchange now. Detected that the player already possesses a bloodline. Exchange. Unknown changes may occur. Yes. Ren had originally chosen the Red Dragon bloodline specifically for its compatibility with other dragon-type or high-tier bloodlines. The elves in Frieren's world had a natural talent for mana and absurdly long lifespans. Ciri had once told Frieren that taking several hundred or even 1,000 years to make a decision was perfectly acceptable. From that perspective, the fusion was well worth it. Ren felt a change occur within his body, but it seemed to be suppressed by the domineering power of the Red Dragon bloodline. Attribute synchronization: strength, 10, agility, 10, intelligence, 31, requires 210 points. Ah, right. After an attribute exceeds 30, every point of synchronization costs 100 points. The intel had mentioned that. Skill synchronization: constant temperature magic LV.1, monk magic LV.1, dispelling magic LV.1, mind control magic LV.1, gaze binding magic LV.1, Earth Manipulation Magic LV.3, High-Speed Movement Magic LV.3, Conceptualized Fantasy, Shrink Ground, LV.1, Mirror Magic LV.1, Space Creation LV.1. Based on your performance in the collision world, your current alignment is chaotic neutral. Chaotic, huh? I had a feeling. After all, I robbed quite a few wealthy merchants and nobles, and my combat methods aren't exactly honorable. Still, it's fine as long as I don't slip into evil. Those chivalrous types in the Crimson Heart Society are probably mostly chaotic good anyway. Ding. Evacuation successful. Talent, Physique of 100 Faces activated. Your body and memories at the time of evacuation from World H07 will be recorded at their peak state. You have obtained the talent-derived skill, Second Face. Second Face, leave a mark in World H07 and record your legend. You may summon a projection in the real world. Ding. Detected that Second Face has established a bond in World H07. Talent, Physique of 100 Faces activated. You have obtained access to the timeline fragments of this collision world. You will log in using the body recorded by Second Face. Ren instantly felt a mysterious change. It seemed he could now perform a teleportation back to Frieren's world. Alpha base attributes: Strength, 10 Agility, 10 Intelligence, 31 Skills. Various ordinary spells like bird catching, corpse traps, etc. A stream of light enveloped his body. The world before his eyes faded, decomposed, and reconstructed. The words Second Face in his skill bar grew solid. Ren's consciousness gradually detached from World H07. He felt no regret. From this journey, he had gained powerful strength, precious treasures, and short but profound bonds. It was enough. The sunlight of the real world spilled through the window onto his bed. Ren opened his eyes. The pale gold patterns on his wrist were slightly warm, and the spatial node deep in his soul was clearly perceptible. With a thought, the luggage on his body disappeared instantly, tucked away into the newly opened space. Real world, here I come. Ren looked at his 31 points of intelligence and smiled. The morning light of the real world filtered through the blinds, cutting the floor into alternating patterns of light and shadow. Ren sat at his desk, his fingers tracing the pale gold sun pattern on his wrist. His consciousness sank deep into his status panel, his gaze locking onto the description of his talent, Physique of 100 Faces. After his second evacuation from World H07, the talent had activated again, adding the projection mark of ELF H07. Adding that to the mimic, humanoid form, left by his first evacuation, he now had two separate clone summoning permissions unlocked. So entering the same world multiple times can trigger repeated talent effects. A faint smile played on Ren's lips. He tapped his fingers rhythmically on the desk. As long as I collect enough items to repeatedly enter a collision world, I can accumulate talent growth without having to traverse too many different universes. I thought I could only activate it once per world. He dialed Zhao Tianxiong's number, his voice steady and emotionless. Arrange for someone to investigate the specific function of legendary status. Also, see if there are any leads to get in touch with the high-ranking members of the Crimson Heart Society. Understood, boss, Zhao Tianxiong replied respectfully, not daring to show the slightest hesitation. Hanging up, Ren pulled up his panel again, his gaze shifting between Submission Magic LV.9 and Intelligence, 31. 31 Intelligence, plus a skill level bonus of 9. A total judgment threshold of 40. The value made his eyes light up, though he showed no sign of impatience. The convenience of controlling the Blood Fight Society made Ren want to go further. Ambition drove his gaze toward all the dark side organizations in the city. However, those who could sit firmly as leaders of dark side organizations in the real world were no common thugs. Their attributes were likely all around 30. Moreover, each one was meticulous and extremely guarded. A reckless move could easily trigger a chain reaction, perhaps even alerting the government's entrant control office. If that happened, he would find himself an enemy of the whole world. The data Zhao Tianxiong had compiled showed that the city's darkside forces were divided into a five-way split, each with its own core business, though they occasionally clashed. Blood Fight Society, Combat Sports and Peripheral Lending. Antique Atelier, Recovery and Appraisal of Various Treasures. Golden Toad Hall, Underground Finance and Loans. Black Snake Gang, Cross-Border Smuggling and Dock Operations. Fist Power Gang, Street-Level Influence, Bars, KTVs, and Funneling Protection Money to Officials. And finally, the Shadow Pavilion, Information Brokerage and Assassination. Up to 50 chapters on P at Frieren, https://www.patreon.com/c/biggetl. Chapter 43, Strengthening the Dark Alliance. 1,536 words. Priority target, the Fist Power Gang is the easiest to break. We start with the street-level forces. Ren's finger traced over the files. The Fist Power Gang controlled the order of the streets in the old city district. Their leader was not an intelligence-based entrant, and street-level conflicts provided the easiest opportunities for contact. He didn't bother with complex preparations. He had deliberately arranged for some Blood Fight Society lackeys to accidentally collide with a Fist Power Gang protection money collection team in one of their controlled blocks, sparking a small-scale skirmish. As expected, once the gang leader Li Chong heard of it, he came knocking with 3 followers, demanding an explanation from the Blood Fight Society. Ren had Zhao Tianxiong lead them to a reception room in the Golden Tripod Club, choosing a relatively private indoor space. In the reception room, the sofas and coffee tables were neatly arranged, and several landscape paintings hung on the walls. The moment Li Chong entered, he slammed his hand on the table and roared, "Boss Zhao, your men must be blind to go running wild on my turf. If you don't give me an explanation today, this isn't over." The 3 followers behind him clenched their fists, adopting a stance ready for a fight at any moment. Ren checked the stats. Even Li Chong, who had the highest intelligence among them, only possessed 28 points. Zhao Tianxiong remained seated on the sofa, not even looking at the hand on the table. He simply spoke tonelessly, "If you want to solve the problem, tell your people to be quiet." Li Chong froze for a moment, then flew into a greater rage. "You motherf." Before he could finish, a light flashed in the eyes of the hidden Ren. Submission magic activated, targeting Li Chong directly. With only 28 points of intelligence, he had no resistance. His body stiffened, and he became completely still. His lackeys realized something was wrong and tried to step forward, but Zhao Tianxiong's bodyguards immediately swarmed them. As Li Chong's gaze shifted rapidly from fury to obedience, his hand remained frozen mid-slam. The suppressed lackeys also began to realize something was off and stopped struggling. "From today on, the Fist Power Gang belongs to my newly founded Dark Alliance," Ren said flatly, wasting no words as he issued his orders. "Starting today, reduce the protection money collection. Continue collecting the portion destined for official channels, but redirect your excess manpower to gather intelligence on the movements of all entrants in the old city. Summarize it daily and report to Zhao Tianxiong. Collect all treasures of gold tier and above within the gang, as well as all points, and hand them over to me. You may keep 10% of the points to maintain normal operations. If there's any unusual movement within the gang, consult with Zhao Tianxiong to ensure everything remains stable. If there's something you can't handle, come to me." "Understood." "Understood." "Your will be done," Li Chong replied in a muffled voice. Ren did not immediately release the magic. Instead, he sat there for a full 10 minutes, observing. He watched Li Chong, confirming that submission magic showed no signs of backlash. It seemed Li Chong wasn't a man of particularly strong will. Even Zhao Tianxiong had been able to resist more than this. Ren then had Zhao Tianxiong take them to begin the handover of the Fist Power Gang. Having secured the gang, Ren didn't rush to the next target. Instead, he took some time to observe. He had Fei monitor the Fist Power Gang's intelligence gathering. Once he confirmed they had indeed stopped the aggressive protection money collection, and were reporting intelligence on time, he finally turned his gaze toward the owner of the curio shop, Old Ghost Shin. Old Ghost Shin loved treasures more than his own life. Ren didn't play games. He had Ah Fei take a gold-tier treasure to the curio shop to put it up for consignment. Ah Fei specifically emphasized that this was part of a set, and would only be sold to a boss who knew his business. When Old Ghost Shin saw the treasure, his eyes lit up as expected. He immediately expressed a desire to meet the owner face to face, hoping to acquire more pieces of the set. Following the plan, Ah Fei led him to the hidden edge room in the Golden Tripod Club. Old Ghost Shin arrived with 2 trusted subordinates. Seeing that none of the 3 had particularly high intelligence attributes, Ren had nothing to worry about. Inside the hidden edge room, the lighting was soft, and the central display stand held the shimmering gold-tier treasure. The moment Old Ghost Shin entered, he rushed to the stand, his eyes darting. "Where is your boss, Zhao Tianxiong? Is this gold-tier treasure really just one piece of a set?" "I am the boss now," Ren said, stepping out from behind a screen. "If you want more, you have to agree to one condition." Old Ghost Shin looked up, eyeing Ren warily before glancing at his subordinates. His tone was tentative. "I know Boss Zhao, but who are you?" Ren didn't answer. Instead, he unleashed submission magic directly on Old Ghost Shin. With 30 points of intelligence, the man had a decent will. He struggled for a few seconds before falling completely into submission. "From now on, all Convergence World treasures recovered by the curio shop of Purple Tier and above are to be given to me. Provided it doesn't affect business operations, 90% of the points must also come to me." Ren issued his instructions. "You will continue to act as the owner. Coordinate anything necessary with Zhao Tianxiong to ensure your forces are integrated into my Dark Alliance without issue." "Understood," Old Ghost Shin nodded woodenly. Only then did Ren allow them to leave with the treasure. Although the process was a bit rushed, as long as the momentum was built, other issues would be minor. Next was Zhou Suli of the Golden Toad Hall. This man was only the figurehead leader. Intelligence indicated there were many more investors behind him. Ren didn't meet him directly. Instead, he had Sister Hong use her official connections to freeze a sum of Golden Toad Hall's capital involved in illegal lending. The amount wasn't huge, but it was enough to make Zhou Suli restless. Simultaneously, he had Sister Hong pass a message to Zhou Suli, "Boss Zhao of the Bloodfight Society has a way to unfreeze those funds. The condition is cooperation." Zhou Suli took the bait and showed up with 2 thugs, demanding to speak with Zhao Tianxiong. The meeting place was a private room in a tea house near the Golden Toad Hall. Zhou Suli had chosen the location, feeling safer on his own turf. Inside the room, the aroma of tea drifted. As soon as Zhou Suli sat down, he went straight to the point. "Boss Zhao, about unfreezing the funds, do you have a lead?" "Unfreezing funds is a small matter," Ren, who was standing nearby, spoke up. "The Golden Toad Hall will join my Dark Alliance and follow Zhao Tianxiong's directives from now on." Zhou Suli frowned, pushing his glasses up the bridge of his nose as a sharp glint flashed in his eyes. "It seems you haven't come with good intentions. Were you the one who had my funds frozen?" "Ha, quite perceptive." Ren wasted no more breath. Submission magic erupted. Zhou Suli had 35 points of intelligence and actually resisted for about 10 seconds before being completely dominated. The thugs at his side tried to charge, but Zhao Tianxiong stepped in personally. Under the flicker of a blood-red glow, the thugs weren't even a match for a single strike. "Don't be too excessive with your business when you go back. We are going to undergo a transition later," Ren said, looking at the bowed Zhou Suli. "Find a way to gather the people behind the Golden Toad Hall for a meeting. I will handle them personally when the time comes." "Yes, boss," Zhou Suli responded respectfully. Ren ordered him to collect the organization's capital and treasures and coordinate with Zhao Tianxiong before he stood up to leave. Once Zhou Suli compiled the information on the investors behind the Golden Toad Hall, Ren discovered that the person who had previously bid on the psionic sorcerer class change item was one of those very investors. Ren had Zhou Suli arrange a meeting with him. However, on the way there, Ren sent the top elites from Lichang and Old Ghostian's factions to take him out. Fortunately, the Moon was a villainous loan shark, so Ren wasn't worried about his alignment falling into the evil category. Using that man's disappearance as an excuse, Ren called a shareholders meeting for the investors behind the Golden Toad Hall. They gathered together, and by the time the last person arrived, every single one of them had fallen under Ren's submission magic. After subduing the three factions, the next month was fast approaching. World H07 was coming to an end, and a new world was about to begin. Ren began to integrate the operations of the Dark Alliance. Up to 50 chapters on P at Frieren, https://www.patreon.com/c/biggetl. Chapter 44, A New World. 1,341 words. The entrant intelligence gathered by the Fistpower gang was synchronized with the curio shop, allowing them to recover treasures with precision. The low-tier treasures recovered by the curio shop were laundered through the Golden Toad Hall's channels and sold. The Golden Toad Hall, in turn, used these treasures as collateral to launch a point-lending business for entrants, forming an initial closed loop of operations. Only when all these plans were initially implemented did Ren turn his gaze toward his next target, Lei Long of the Xiansnake gang. Lei Long controlled the city's docks and cross-border smuggling routes. He had many combat-oriented entrants under his command, making his faction relatively powerful. After all, ever since the implementation of AI oversight, smuggling treasures by land had become difficult. Only the sea routes remained loose, and the high profits had gradually made the Xiansnake gang the #1 gang in the city. Ren didn't act rashly. Instead, he had Zhao Tianxiong use the Bloodfight Society's underground arena resources to create friction with the Xiansnake gang's partners. He deliberately intercepted one of the Xiansnake gang's shipping routes carrying low-level magic materials, triggering a conflict between the gang and their business associates. While Lei Long was frantically dealing with the disputes, Ren secured an introduction through the Golden Toad Hall to meet him. Lei Long brought 4 followers to the meeting, all of whom were combat entrants with significant strength. The meeting took place in a warehouse near the docks. This was Xiansnake gang territory, so Lei Long's guard was relatively low. The warehouse was stacked with shipping containers, and the air was thick with the salty, fishy scent of the sea. Lei Long wore a black short-sleeved outfit. He was burly, with a faint scar on his face and sharp, piercing eyes. "Mr. Ren, I heard you can mediate the dispute between me and my partners." "I can," Ren nodded. "But I have one condition. The Xiansnake gang joins my Dark Alliance. You will remain the boss of the gang, but you must cooperate with the Alliance's unified coordination." Lei Long's expression darkened. "Oh? So Mr. Ren wants to swallow my Xiansnake gang. I wonder what this Dark Alliance of yours is all about." "This is a partnership. As for the Dark Alliance..." Ren's tone was calm. As he spoke, he naturally raised his hand. "Submission magic." Lei Long's eyes flickered, and his body began to struggle violently. Sensing something was wrong, his 4 followers moved immediately, intending to seize Ren. But Ren was prepared. The experts from his Dark Alliance who had been lurking in the shadows swarmed out, instantly controlling Lei Long and his followers. To Ren's surprise, Lei Long's resistance was extremely intense. He even tried to launch an attack. Ren sighed. He had finally encountered someone capable of resisting his submission magic so quickly. "Go and seize the second and third in command of the Xiansnake gang." "I'll be there shortly," Ren commanded the Dark Alliance experts. "Also keep a close eye on Lei Long." Ren didn't kill Lei Long immediately. He could play the long game, just as Aura had attempted to wear down Frieren's mana. He would simply wear down the man's will. Ren then controlled the second in command, Lei Sha, taking over the Xiansnake gang first. He dispatched people to use various convergence world methods to systematically erode Lei Long's willpower. By noon the next day, Ren finally succeeded in controlling Lei Long. From that point on, he had total control over the Xiansnake gang. The commotion from taking over the gang had been a bit loud, drawing official attention. Ren had to rely on Sister Hong and other subordinates with government ties to suppress the news. Ren understood that he had only experienced one convergence world. In the real world, there were many brilliant individuals who could achieve high-level completions even without knowing the plot. He could not afford to expose himself too early. Ren tightened the Dark Alliance's operations, ordering them to continue pretending to be separate factions with occasional friction. He focused on 3 key principles. 1. Grip only the core, business transformation and coordination. Do not interfere in daily operations. Ensure things don't go too far while preserving the leader's face and some of their power to prevent suspicion among the uncontrolled rank and file. 2. Establish layers of mutual surveillance with planted informants to assist in executing orders and relaying intelligence, preventing those controlled from breaking free for any reason. 3. Secure all gold-tier treasures and 90% of the points, leaving 10% and sub-gold-tier treasures for operational use. With the 4 major factions integrated, Ren's plan to sell treasures progressed steadily. Ordinary treasures recovered by the curio shop were laundered by the Golden Toad Hall, and shipped via the Xian Snake Gang to be sold to entrants everywhere. Ren began to accumulate a massive amount of points. After all, many people wanted to trade treasures without being discovered to avoid the AI United Front Center. It seemed the waters of the real world were very deep. Ren first spent over 1,000 points to acquire a gold-tier void expansion crystal, expanding the capacity of his space expansion from 1 cubic meter to over 100, completely solving his storage problems. Suddenly, Ren was carrying more than 20 gold-tier treasures. Even for those he couldn't use, he found channels in the provincial capital to exchange them for items he needed. Ren had built himself into an invincible fortress. He recalled a previous convergence world. If anyone could have dropped a certain treasure in that world, he absolutely had to get his hands on it. It was perfect for him. It was a pity he hadn't made it to the Fuyuki City convergence world. There were many things there he truly wanted. Ren's contact with the Crimson Heart Society remained extremely cautious. He had the Fist Power Gang collect intelligence on illegal street entrants and report them anonymously to the local branch of the Crimson Heart Society. This actually made Lin Feng, the head of the local Crimson Heart Society branch, feel that something was slightly off. When Lin Feng led raids, the Fist Power Gang actively cooperated, providing precise leads. This gave Lin Feng a vague sense that there was a force behind the scenes regulating the order of the underworld, yet he could find no trace pointing to the Dark Alliance. Ren stood on the rooftop terrace of the Golden Tripod Club, overlooking the heavy traffic of the city. Street intelligence, treasure recovery, financial lending, and cross-border transport, the 4 major underworld businesses had formed a closed loop. However, another dark-side organization, the Shadow Pavilion, was still lurking in the shadows, and there was still no news regarding the investigation into the legends. Ren was not eager for quick success or impulsive expansion. He simply laid his foundation one step at a time. This slow game of underworld consolidation had only just seen the first piece placed on the board. Meanwhile, as the clock struck midnight, a new month arrived. The mark on his wrist pulsed with a sudden surge of heat. A new convergence world had begun. The announcement of the new convergence world rippled like an invisible wave across the globe. The pale gold sun sigil on Ren's wrist grew burning hot. The Dark Alliance's intelligence network was efficient. In just a few short hours, they had summarized core information about the new convergence world from pioneers who had failed or withdrawn. Abnormal cursed energy fluctuations, frequent paranormal incidents, and a system of jujitsu sorcerers and cursed spirits hidden beneath the mundane world. Cursed energy, a power derived from human negative emotions. Jujitsu sorcerers are trained to extract cursed energy even from minute feelings. Cursed spirits are creatures formed from the aggregation of cursed energy leaked by ordinary people. Their bodies are composed entirely of cursed energy. They are invisible to ordinary humans, immune to physical attacks, but vulnerable to cursed energy. Negative emotions toward specific objects or concepts manifest as corresponding cursed spirits. Up to 50 chapters on P at Frieren, https://www.patreon.com/c/biggetl. Chapter 45, Mystic Grade Loadout, Ketsuzetsu. 1,413 words. Jujitsu sorcerers are those who fight cursed spirits, responsible for lifting curses and exorcising spirits. At the same grade, a sorcerer is typically stronger than a spirit. There are also evil sorcerers known as curse users. Then there are innate techniques, abilities a sorcerer is born with. Not all sorcerers possess one, and they are almost impossible to acquire after birth. By channeling cursed energy into a technique, one can activate corresponding jujitsu. These can be inherited. Ancient sorcerer clans often have techniques passed down through generations. And then, there are domains. Ren suddenly remembered a spellbook he had seen before. He logged into the Entrant app, purchased the Melf's Minute Meteors spell, and paid a few extra points to have it delivered to his door. A Tier 3 D&D spell wasn't expensive anyway, but if the trick he had in mind worked, he would have a formidable new tool in the real world. Ren rubbed the solar pattern on his wrist with his thumb. He already had his answer. This convergence world was Jujitsu Kaisen. In a secret chamber beneath the Golden Tripod Club, the air was as thick as iron. Over 100 core members of the Dark Alliance were gathered. From the backbone of the Bloodfight Society, and the appraisers of the Antique Pavilion to the financial manipulators of Golden Toad Hall, and the combatants of the Black Snake Gang, everyone present was an elite, who had achieved a universe-grade evaluation or higher in a convergence world. The new convergence world is an open mode. You should have reviewed the intelligence by now, Ren said, standing on a high platform in the center of the chamber. The hem of his black trench coat fluttered despite the lack of wind. His voice, projected through a specialized amplifier, reached every corner with unquestionable authority. World designation H08. The core system revolves around cursed energy, energy derived from human negative emotions, cursed spirits, monsters formed from condensed cursed energy, and sorcerers, those who manipulate cursed energy to combat them. He raised a hand and swiped a virtual panel. Blurry images of cursed spirits and snippets of sorcerer battles instantly appeared on the wall. There are 4 known special grade sorcerers. Among them, Satoru Gojo is recognized as the strongest in the jujitsu world. Ren shared various setting details that weren't strictly plot-related. They would find out eventually, but telling them now would give his subordinates a head start. If his subordinates grew stronger, it would be a win-win situation for him. Our goal is naturally to achieve higher ratings. Once inside, try to choose the sorcerer path. Even if a cursed spirit is strong, they will eventually be targeted by a powerhouse at this point in the timeline. Ren's gaze swept over everyone below. Try to meet up inside if possible. Our Dark Alliance members should help one another. However, the intelligence suggests this open mode instance doesn't have a massive capacity, so we might not all end up in the same session. In 10 minutes, all members will synchronize and activate the convergence world. The internal communication protocol has been synced to your terminals. He pressed the send button. The code is Black Snake Bloodfight, Antique Golden Toad. Once inside, we'll set up a website so everyone can establish contact as quickly as possible to assist each other. If you're in danger, call for help. But remember, prioritize your own survival. It is strictly forbidden to provoke the targets I've listed in your files. The crowd below accepted their orders and began confirming the data and communication plans. 10 minutes later, as Ren was the first to activate his mark, the Dark Alliance members responded simultaneously. The mighty power of the convergence world dragged their consciousnesses toward a new world. Call received. Convergence world, H08 mode, open loadout rating, mystic grade, generating identity. Deep within his consciousness, mystic grade loadout options surged forward like a tide. A strong sense of spatial distortion made Ren feel momentary vertigo. Cursed Spirit, the Sizer special grade. Identity ability, domain expansion, Cage of Contraction, deploy a domain where all targets, cursed spirits or sorcerers, are forcibly shrunk to 1% of their original size. Asterisk a domain. I can already access those with a mystic grade loadout, asterisk. Ren's finger swiped across the screen, clicking rotate, without hesitation. The ability seemed dominant, but compared to the true monsters of this world, this domain was rather lackluster. It only reduced size, its only real merit was the sure hit factor. The text reorganized, and a second loadout option flickered into existence. Curse user, Riga. Identity ability, curse technique, lightning erosion manipulates lightning that isn't pure electricity, but lightning erosion mixed with corrosive cursed energy possessing water properties. Upon hitting a target, it deals electric damage, and allows cursed energy to seep into the body through wounds, disrupting the opponent's cursed energy circulation. Possesses vast cursed energy reserves and mastery of the reverse curse technique. Ren still chose to rotate. While it looked decent, he felt there would be a better choice. Third rotation, Grade 1 Sorcerer, Kanko Tenmoyama. Identity ability, muscle activation plus special grade curse tool, Mota's Feather Cutter. The technique can activate muscles, granting both strength and speed. Master of a hereditary special grade blade type curse tool, and practitioner of the new shadow style, capable of using simple domain. Ren rotated again. This loadout relied too heavily on a cursed tool, and the technique was too straightforward, not much better than the previous Riga, even if it fit the punching style of Jujutsu Kaisen. He knew the plot and had many ways to obtain special grade curse tools. There was no need to pick a strength profile that relied on external objects. The three loadouts had different focuses, and were all strong options for actual combat, yet none were quite satisfying. Ren performed the fourth rotation, and a new identity option suddenly lit up. Cursed Spirit Hybrid, Ketsuzetsuso, a preliminary prototype created before the birth of the Cursed Womb, Death Paintings. A stillborn cursed womb has incarnated into a human host. Appearance is identical to a normal human, with no cursed spirit characteristics. Possesses inexhaustible blood production capabilities. Innate technique, blood origin, seeded spirits. By obtaining a target's blood and analyzing the core structure of their unique abilities, the user can use their own blood to condense a Shikigami possessing the corresponding abilities. A glint flashed in Ren's eyes. This was good. This identity meant his cursed energy wouldn't be weak, and since he looked human, he could blend into the human society's plot lines. Furthermore, if he encountered Choso, he could likely gain a brotherly ally. The technique, blood origin, seeded spirits, had immense growth potential. It felt like a fusion of Megumi Fushiguro's 10 Shadows technique and Yuta Okatsu's technique mimicry. However, this identity would definitely lead to an intersection with Noritoshi Kamo, or rather, Kenjaku. Getting onto that old schemer's radar too early wasn't necessarily a good thing. Ren could spend a few hundred more points to rotate again, but he felt he might not get anything better than this. There was no need to gamble. Ha, Kenjaku or not, do you think I'm afraid of you? Ren's gaze turned cold as he made his decision. Confirm selection. Identity confirmed, loading identity, Ketsuzetsuso. A dizzying sensation hit him, as if he had been tossed into a high-speed washing machine. The power of cursed energy and blood surged like molten lava, rushing through his veins into every limb. The dark red cursed marks that briefly appeared under his skin vanished instantly, leaving only a faint hum as his blood flowed. Cursed energy had completely fused with his physical body. From the inside out, he was indistinguishable from an ordinary human sorcerer. When his consciousness landed, Ren found himself standing in a secluded alleyway in Tokyo. Reviewing his host's memories, he saw the face of Suguru Geto with stitches across his forehead. Aside from basic language and common knowledge, most of the memories were blurred. Asterisk, is it already after the night parade of 100 demons? Kenjaku has already taken over Suguru Geto's body, asterisk. Ren tried to use his memory of mana manipulation techniques to release magic using cursed energy, only to find the energy was a chaotic mess. However, physical combat skills like flash strike could still be used. Asterisk a conflict in world laws. That's a bit of a nuisance. I should gather some intelligence first, Ren thought, looking around. Up to 50 chapters on P at Frieren, https://www.patreon.com/c/biggetl. Chapter 46, Satoru Gojo. 1,354 words. The alley walls were covered in graffiti, and the air smelled of rotting garbage and the faint, metallic tang of cursed energy. The roar of traffic echoed from a distance, and the setting sun stretched the shadows at the alley's entrance. He circulated his cursed energy to sense his surroundings. Like a radar, he swept the area and quickly locked onto an abnormal fluctuation. It was in an abandoned warehouse at the end of the alley. The fluctuation was chaotic and dark, carrying the distinct scent of residual cursed energy unique to sorcerers. Likely curse users, he thought. A group of sorcerers who had strayed from the path, and were not recognized by the jujitsu world. Ren walked toward the warehouse at a measured pace, and pushed open the ajar corrugated iron door. A piercing screech broke the silence. The warehouse was dimly lit, with only a few beams of sunlight piercing through holes in the roof, illuminating the trash and discarded cardboard boxes littering the floor. 3 casually dressed men were huddled around an old table with a black briefcase. Cash was scattered across the tabletop. They were clearly engaged in an illicit transaction. "Who are you?" One of the men, who had a thick beard, whipped his head around. Faint black cursed energy pooled in his hands, his eyes as fierce as a wolf's. "Get out. This isn't a place for someone like you." Ren didn't waste words. He blurred, dark red cursed energy condensing into a sharp blood spike in his palm, as he instantly appeared before the bearded man. The blood spike pressed against the man's throat. The cold sensation caused him to freeze instantly, his ferocity turning into sheer terror. The other 2 curse users turned to run, but Ren had already swept their legs and pinned them to the ground. "If you don't want to die, tell me the truth." Ren's voice was flat. The blood spike pricked the skin, drawing a thin line of blood. "Tell me everything you know about recent major events." The bearded man trembled, spilling everything like beans from a jar. After interrogating the other 2 to confirm they weren't lying, Ren took some of their blood to experiment with his technique. In the end, he discovered he could only produce 3 trash shikigami equivalent to grade 4 curse spirits. It had cost him quite a bit of blood. If not for his specialized blood-producing constitution, this technique would have been quite useless. However, Ren knew the issue lay with the weakness of the targets. He needed the blood of powerhouses to create anything worthwhile. Seeing that the 3 hadn't done anything truly irredeemable, merely being products of the distorted worldview of the Jujutsu Kaisen world, he tied them up and opened the briefcase on the table. It contained the cursed tools they were trading. They were just ordinary weapons, glowing with a green light recognized by the Convergence world, basically just green tear daggers that could strike cursed spirits. He didn't linger, walking quickly toward an internet cafe at the alley's entrance. Using the ID of one of the men, he opened a booth. Ren sat down in a partitioned cubicle. His fingers flew across the keyboard. Using the intel he had just gathered, he accessed several hidden forums within the sorcerer community. These forums were highly encrypted, filled with discussions between independent sorcerers, curse tool trade listings, and mission intel. He browsed quickly, verifying the curse user's claims. Once he confirmed the information, Ren stopped being indirect. He searched for the Dark Alliance's code website, and found that members had already established one. He left a command for them to search for the blood of strong individuals as much as possible. Then, he continued to carefully browse the sorcerer forums. He learned that the only major recent event was the night parade of 100 demons. The information in these circles was still too low level. He couldn't pinpoint the exact moment in the timeline. Had Yuji Itadori swallowed Sukuna's finger yet? Having a general grasp of the situation but lacking a clear lead, Ren decided to head out for a meal and think things over. Looking at the Dark Alliance site, so many of our people chose the sorcerer identity. Sorcerers were originally few and far between, while the spirits have the four great disasters. Now that the numbers have increased so much, the cursed spirit side will become a real headache. But then again, most of that is offset by the existence of Satoru Gojo. These low-level sorcerers shouldn't cause the birth of spirits that are too powerful. Rin pondered as he wandered. He looked at the shops along the road and realized he had reached Takashita Street in Harajuku. Seeing a crepe shop, he felt a sudden urge to try one. As he entered the street, Rin avoided a few black men trying to sell fake goods. Then, he heard the voice of a talent scout nearby. A model? I'm asking, how about me? A female voice rang out. A memory flashed through Ren's mind. He looked over. An orange-haired girl in a navy blue uniform, carrying several bags, was grabbing a middle-aged man. That's Nobara Kujisaki. Rin looked closely, unable to believe his luck. He was just about to walk over. Then, he heard a cheerful male voice, "Hey, over here, over here." The moment Rin looked over, his footsteps stopped. Cold sweat beaded on his forehead. In his vision was a trio. In the middle was a black-haired boy with sea urchin hair. To the right was a pink-haired boy in a red hood wearing strange glasses. But on the left, a head of white hair reaching for the sky, a black blindfold covering his face. After waving, he seemed to notice Ren's presence and turned his face toward him. This is definitely a problem. My luck is so weird. I ran into Frieren at the start of the Frieren world, and now I run into Satoru Gojo the moment I enter Jujutsu Kaisen, The six eyes can see through my nature as an incarnated vessel, right? He wouldn't just kill me on a whim, would he? Rin screamed powerlessly in his heart, his mind racing for a solution. Fighting or running were both unrealistic options. Take the surrounding civilians hostage. Rin remembered the battle in the subway station in the future and immediately realized that was also futile. Why do I always run into the final boss right away? Can't I just have a smooth start for once? Rin realized he had to use his brain to survive this. Rin awkwardly raised a hand in greeting, intending to turn and leave. But as he turned, he saw a face with a black blindfold appear right in front of him. The man leaned down to look him in the face. Rin froze in place, watching as the man circled him curiously, as if inspecting something. Rin actually felt a slight sense of relief. If this guy is interested, it might be safer. At least I won't be killed the second I land in this world, You're very peculiar. You have the scent of a cursed spirit, yet you feel like those people from the Kamo clan. But you look human. An incarnated vessel. Satoru Gojo rubbed his smooth chin. Just as Rin was struggling with how to speak, Megumi Fushiguro approached, leading Yuji Itadori and Nobara Kujisaki. Why did you leave the students you just called and run over here? Hey, Megumi, can't you see the problem with this guy? Huh? Don't harass people, wait. This guy has residual energy on him. A sorcerer. Megumi reacted after a closer look. Yuji, on the other hand, spoke up. Didn't you just tell me that sorcerers are rare, and that's why there are only 3 first-year students? Nobara Kujisaki stood to the side with her arms crossed, eyeing the group. In her heart, she had already labeled Megumi and Yuji as weirdos, the type who would burn pigeons with diesel or eat their own boogers as kids. Up to 50 chapters on P at Frieren, https://www.patreon.com/c/biggetl. Chapter 47, Chapter 47, Do you want to watch Sugura Geto being toyed with? 1,254 words. No, this guy is a vessel too. Satoru Gojo straightened his back. In the next heartbeat, Itadori and the others felt their vision blur, and they were suddenly standing in a nearby alleyway. Rin had noticed the movement, but he could only react to it, he wasn't fast enough to stop it. Sorry for giving you the cold shoulder. I couldn't help but focus on him since his situation is so interesting. Anyway, go ahead and introduce yourself, Gojo said, turning to Nobara. Nobara Kujisaki. Rejoice, boys, your lucky star has arrived. Nobara set her things down, placed one hand on her hip, and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear with the other. So dramatic, Rin couldn't help but mutter. Ha 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 ha. Gojo and Yuji Itadori immediately burst into laughter together. Ha ha ha, Mun, you really didn't give her any face at all. Itadori laughed, slapping Gojo's shoulder. You jerk. Beside them, Nobara looked like she was ready to commit murder. And who the hell are you? Laughing at a girl, you're the absolute worst. And judging by those clothes, you're not from Jujutsu High, Nobara snapped, glaring at Ren as if she were about to strike. Right, who are you? Mr. Vessel. Gojo walked up to the three of them and looked Ren over. I wasn't laughing at her, I just couldn't resist a little commentary. I'm Ren. You could consider me the older brother of that pink-haired guy behind you. Ren had already devised a plan and spoke calmly. It was risky but worth a shot. Ha! My brother. Itadori, standing behind Gojo, was stunned. He pointed at himself, then looked at Ren's face, which looked nothing like his own. If you don't believe me, give me a drop of your blood and you'll see. Hey! Megumi Fushiguro started to step forward, but Gojo reached out a hand to stop him. Don't worry, Megumi. I'm right here, Gojo said with a backward glance and a smile. Ren handed a confiscated dagger to Itadori. Not believing a word of it, Itadori cut his finger, and let a drop of blood fall into Ren's palm. Ren then slid his own finger across the blade, letting his blood drip down as well. The group watched as the two drops merged perfectly into one. Nobara, who had been holding back for a while, finally snapped. Are you taking us for fools? It's just the same blood type. For all we know, you're both type O. Ah, how interesting. You weren't lying. Gojo was suddenly in front of him, leaning down to inspect the two merged drops of blood. Both vessels, huh? Fascinating. Gojo straightened up and comforted his students. Don't be mad, Nobara. I'll take you all for a good tour of Tokyo later. Right now, I need to have a little chat with this guy. Megumi, take them to Roppongi. There's a cursed spirit there that needs exorcising. Think of it as a practical test, you'll be the proctor and protector. Gojo patted Megumi's shoulder. Hey, wait. Itadori wanted to say more, but Gojo waved his hand and vanished in a flash, taking Ren with him. Standing on a rooftop under the blinding sun, Gojo shielded his brow with his hand, and watched the group depart below. Then, he turned to Ren. Clever. You didn't run. So, what is it you want to tell me? Gojo asked with great interest. Suguru Geto isn't dead. I'm his masterpiece, Ren said, pointing to himself. Oh? Gojo tilted his head back and pulled down his blindfold, revealing a pair of impossibly clear, azure eyes. They looked like the crushed remnants of the sky had been melted into them, yet deep within those pupils lay a sharpness that made it impossible to look directly at them, as if they could pierce through any falsehood. Facing Gojo's gaze, Ren let out a smile. He'd taken the bait. Since he knew the plot, he had to use that momentum to create his own leverage. What could possibly interest Satoru Gojo? Simple, Suguru Geto, or rather, Kenjaku. The wind on the rooftop was fierce, whipping Ren's clothes and blowing Gojo's unruly silver hair. The azure six eyes stared directly at him. There was no warmth in them, only a soul-piercing pressure that felt like it was stripping Ren's spirit bare. Ren didn't look away. He met that gaze and spoke in a level voice, Suguru Geto's body is still alive. But the person inside is no longer him. The expression on Gojo's face turned cold, his six eyes narrowing slightly. What are you trying to say? The one occupying his body is Kenjaku. Ren spoke the name slowly, syllable by syllable, watching the momentary flicker of confusion in Gojo's eyes. That ancient name, Kenjaku, the sorcerer from 1,000 years ago, had long since become a forgotten legend to the modern jujitsu world. Rin added, he is a curse user from a millennium ago, a master of the incarnation technique, who can continuously seize the bodies of others to extend his life. You can verify this with Tengen, he should know about Kenjaku. Gojo's pupils contracted sharply, and a trace of solemnity flashed through his azure eyes. He raised a hand to stroke his chin, his cursed energy fluctuations becoming slightly turbulent. You know a lot. Kenjaku. I feel like I've seen that name in ancient texts. How do you know so many secrets? You know of the cursed womb, death paintings, right? I was an experimental subject created before them, a half-breed of cursed spirit and human. Kenjaku is my creator. Rin smiled, his acting skills coming into play. The smile carried a hint of self-mockery. When he created me, he didn't bother hiding everything. Combined with my knack for gathering information, it wasn't hard to piece together the truth. Right now, he is occupying Suguru Geto's body, and has infiltrated the higher-ups of the jujitsu world. He has a terrifying master plan for the future. The star plasma vessel incident you were involved in. He was the one behind it. Rin took a step forward, standing only a few meters from Gojo. The higher-ups are either controlled by him, or have been blackmailed into becoming his pawns. Think about it. Are they really just conservative and ignorant, Satoru Gojo? Do you really want to stand by and watch Suguru Geto's body be toyed with? Rin stood his ground, looking Gojo in the eye. Gojo remained silent for a moment. He took his blindfold off entirely and walked over, looking Rin face to face with those azure eyes. Then why are you telling me this? If Kenjaku is your creator, you should be on his side. What's your motive? I have my own thoughts, Rin said with conviction. He created me to be his pawn, but I don't want to be controlled by anyone. Besides, you and Suguru Geto have a deep history, don't you? You won't just let Kenjaku use his body for evil. Rin spoke again, throwing out the deal he had prepared. I'm telling you this because I want you to give me an official sorcerer identity. Let me join Jujutsu High as your student. As the strongest in the jujutsu world, that should be easy for you, right? My student. Gojo arched an eyebrow, a playful glint in his eyes. You said it yourself, I'm the strongest. Why don't I just go kill Kenjaku and the moles in the higher-ups myself? Why should I help you? Suddenly, his figure vanished. Up to 50 chapters on P at Frieren, https://www.patreon.com/c/bigtl. Chapter 48, Chapter 48, The Binding Vow Established. 1,244 words. I can kill you, or those foolish jujitsu higher-ups, whenever I feel like it. Gojo's arrogant voice, tinged with a chill, came from behind Rin. Simultaneously, Rin felt a faint condensation of cursed energy. You won't do that. Rin remained unruffled, turning around to meet those azure eyes. You're not that kind of person. You could kill them all whenever you want, but you need justification. I can help you find that justification. Rin paused. I can also form a binding vow with you. I will do my best to protect the safety of your other students. You may be the strongest, but those promising young talents you've pinned your hopes on could be targeted by the higher-ups at any moment. Wouldn't it be quite logical for me to hide among them as a classmate to protect them? A binding vow. Gojo's gaze lingered on Ren's face for a long time. His 6 eyes scanned Ren's entire body repeatedly, as if confirming the truth of his words. After a long silence, he suddenly laughed. The azure light in his eyes regained its playful mirth. Interesting. Truly interesting. You really are a bold guy. He raised his hand, pale blue cursed energy condensing in his palm. I agree. I'll verify things with Tengen as well. If you're lying, you'll have to pay the price for being a bad boy. Let's do it. Ha, quite the straightforward one. You really do have the spirit of the strongest, Satoru Gojo. Ren thought back to the original plot he had read. He hoped this wouldn't end with Gojo just being satisfied after a defeat. While there was an element of exploitation in his plan, he still felt a certain connection to these characters from the original story. He didn't view them entirely as mere NPCs. Ren reached out his hand as well. Dark red cursed energy flowed in his palm, intertwining with Gojo's. The two currents of cursed energy formed an invisible contract in the air, which then branded itself into the depths of their souls. Binding vow established. The moment the vow was formed, Ren could clearly feel himself bound to the contract. All right, the vow is set. Gojo withdrew his hand and put his blindfold back on. I'll check in with that guy Tengen and dig into those old geezers in the higher-ups while I'm at it. And about this Kenjaku you mentioned. His tone was light, but carried a trace of cold murderous intent. He was clearly thinking of his former best friend. As for what I promised you, Gojo turned to Ren, a guy named Ajichi will contact you later. Just tell him you're a sorcerer I scouted. Most people won't be able to tell what you really are anyway. I'll tell Principal Yaga to arrange your enrollment and dorm. He paused, then added, by the way, keep this a secret from Megumi and Itadori. I don't want them burdened with such heavy things. After all, I don't have the right to rob them of their youth. Don't worry, I'll do my best to protect them. Ren nodded in thanks. Ren took out a phone he had taken from those curse users earlier, and gave Gojo his number. Gojo waved a hand, and with a flash, he vanished from the rooftop, leaving behind only a faint ripple of cursed energy. Ren stood alone on the rooftop, overlooking the bustling downtown of Tokyo. A smile played on his lips. He raised his hand, dark red cursed energy surfacing in his palm as his technique, Bloodline Seed Spirit, began to activate. It was using that drop of blood from Itadori. His body hasn't been engraved with Sukuna's technique yet. Well, it is too early. Ren saw that the Shikigami born from the blood didn't have any special effects other than being able to possess him to boost his close-quarters combat. He decided to find another chance to update it with Itadori later. Next, his goal was to collect blood from enough powerful individuals to unlock more potential for the Bloodline Seed Spirit. Yuji Itadori, Megumi Fushiguro, Nobara Kujisaki, and even Toji Inumaki, everyone at Jujutsu High was now his target. He pulled out his phone, logged onto a website, and sent out a new directive to the members of the Shadow Alliance. Infiltrate various jujutsu organizations and collect blood from more sorcerers. Closely monitor the movements of the jujutsu higher-ups. Report any abnormalities immediately. Rewards and points will be given based on the value of the intelligence provided. After sending the command, Ren turned and jumped off the roof. The sun was high, stretching his shadow long as it merged into the darkness cast by the Tokyo buildings. The next morning at 8:30 a.m., Ren stood before the gates of Tokyo Jujutsu High. Behind him was Ajichi, who had driven him there. Hidden deep within the mountains and forests, this school was a world away from the bustle of the city. The air was fresh, carrying a faint scent of the barrier, and the environment was quiet and serene. He followed Ajichi to the principal's office. The door was slightly ajar, and the sound of fabric being cut echoed from within. Ren pushed the door open gently. A tall, stern man was sitting at a workbench, focused on sewing. His fingers moved with agility, cotton and thread flying. Soon, the prototype of a cursed corpse appeared in his hands. You're Ren. Principal Yaga looked up, his voice deep and raspy. Satoru Gojo already gave me the heads up. Your enrollment papers are done. Your dorm is room 103 in the boys' building, sharing the floor with Yuji Itadori and Megumi Fushiguro. He stood up and handed a Jujutsu High uniform and a dorm key to Ren. As a student here, besides attending classes, you will occasionally have exorcism missions. There is a Jujutsu theory class at 10 a.m. today, and practical training in the afternoon. Don't be late. Thank you, Principal, Ren said, taking the uniform and key with a bow. Satoru might be unreliable most of the time, but I trust him, Yaga said, his voice dropping an octave. Don't do anything you shouldn't. Rin knew Gojo must have told Yaga quite a bit for him to react like this. He nodded and turned to leave the office. He took his key and headed toward the boys' dorm. He didn't see anyone along the way. After all, jujitsu sorcerers were few and far between. The door to the room next to 103 wasn't locked. Rin walked over and saw Yuji Itadori slumped over a desk, looking miserable as he stared at a jujitsu theory book. Megumi Fushiguro was sitting nearby, coaching him. Hearing footsteps, both of them looked up at the same time. Oh, it's you. Itadori stood up excitedly. You actually joined the school. When that flaky Gojo-sensei told me last night, I didn't quite believe him. Megumi also set his book down and gave a nod as a greeting. I look forward to working with you, Rin said with a smile, using his key to open the door to room 103. Oh, right, Rin. What was that about being my brother yesterday? Itadori asked curiously, coming to the doorway. It's a secret. You'll understand when you suddenly find yourself with a memory you never actually lived through. Rin put a finger to his lips, signaling Itadori to keep quiet. Up to 50 chapters on P at Frieren, https://www.patreon.com/c/bigtl. Chapter 49, Chapter 49, Those Days at Jujutsu High. 1413 words. Mornings at Tokyo Jujutsu High were always accompanied by the chirping of birds in the woods. When Rin pushed open the door to dorm room 103, the morning mist had not yet fully dissipated. The dormitory consisted of single rooms with simple furnishings, a bed, a desk, and a wardrobe. Outside the window lay a lush forest, and the air was thick with the fresh scent of greenery. He had just finished washing up when a hurried knocking sounded at the door. Opening it, he saw Itadori Yuji's head peek inside. Ren. You're awake. Want to grab breakfast together? It's too early to be this noisy. Kojisaki Nobara's voice followed. She walked over carrying her cursed tool bag and gave Rin a disgruntled look. Someone was just criticizing others for acting cool, yet here he is looking this slovenly. Rin leaned against the doorframe, intentionally teasing her. Still better than someone who's always prickly and ready to hit people at the drop of a hat, right? You're asking for it. Nobara flared up instantly. She reached for her cursed tools but was stopped by Fushiguro Megumi, who had just stepped out of the adjacent room. Cut it out. We're going to be late for the theory lecture. Fushiguro held a notebook, his gaze calm as he looked at Ren. You've been helping Itadori with the basics of cursed energy usage quite a lot. I'm starting to wonder about your connection to him. Trust me. Rin gave him a smile, which silenced whatever else Fushiguro had planned to say. Amidst the banter, the four of them headed toward the classroom building. During the theory lecture, the instructor's dry explanation made Itadori nod off. Ren, however, listened intently. This fundamental knowledge of jujitsu was quite useful to him. Just as Choso had many things to master over time, the same applied to Ren's own Chijua phase. Halfway through, Nobara secretly kicked his chair and whispered, Hey, are you really a wild sorcerer discovered by Gojo-sensei? No matter how I look at it, you're as much of a newbie as Itadori. What did that vessel thing mean the other day? Secrets are a man's romance. Don't go prying. Rin turned and grinned, earning a frustrated eye roll from Nobara, though her curiosity only seemed to grow. After class, Rin went to see Principal Yaga to ask about mission assignments. Inside the principal's office, Yaga sat at his workbench sewing felt dolls. Cotton and silk thread were scattered across the table, and a half-finished curse corpse sat by his hand, its stitching fine and even. He looked up, his voice deep and gravelly. Satoru Gojo has already spoken to me. Your missions will be arranged alongside the first year's. Satoru specifically requested that you participate in more actual combat to find your rhythm. However, remember this, A student of Jujutsu High must not only exorcise curses, but also maintain their moral compass. Rin nodded in agreement. His gaze swept over the dolls on the workbench. He remembered that after Gojo was sealed, Yaga was executed, and before his death, he had revealed the secret to creating independent cursed corpses to Gakuganje. He's truly a kind but tragic figure, Rin thought. If he treats me well later on, I'll change his fate. Before the practical training in the afternoon, Rin made a detour to the school infirmary. The school physician, Shoko Yeri, was leaning back in her chair smoking. After hearing Ren's request, she arched an eyebrow. A freshman. You want to learn reverse curse technique? Yes. Please teach me. Rin looked her straight in the eye. Shoko put down her cigarette and stood up to demonstrate. I don't mind. Reverse curse technique is simple. You just take negative cursed energy and go shoot to turn it positive. Like this. She raised her hand toward a spot nearby, and a faint green light flashed. Feel that? Just a shoo and it's done. Rin attempted to circulate his cursed energy, mimicking her movements, but he only felt the energy swirling in his palm with no sign of transformation. He tried repeatedly while Shoko provided patient guidance, saying things like more shoo or make it warmer, but the notification from the convergence world never sounded. I thought any sincere instruction counted, Rin thought, withdrawing his hand in frustration. Shoko wasn't surprised. Reverse curse technique is rare to begin with. Just keep practicing. Maybe one day you'll just shoo and learn it. When he left the infirmary, the sound of fighting was already coming from the training field. Itadori was sparring with Fushiguro. Gojo Satoru was leaning against the railing watching the show. Seeing Ren, he waved. Ren. Come here, let me see how your recent close-quarters combat skills are coming along. As Ren stepped forward, Gojo suddenly appeared behind him, his palm resting on Ren's shoulder. I heard your basics are poor. You get private tutoring from the teacher today. Cursed energy isn't just for firing off techniques. It can also be infused into your limbs and weapons to greatly increase their power. Like this. He threw a punch at Ren, his fist coated in faint blue cursed energy. Ren dodged to the side, and the punch slammed into a training post, causing the wood to shatter instantly. Hey, are you trying to kill me? I at least know the basics. Haha, just a joke. I went to see Tengen, it seems what you said was true. Gojo rubbed the back of his head with a laugh, then his expression turned serious. Ren suddenly had an idea. Taking advantage of the moment, he asked, of course it's true. By the way, Gojo-sensei, could you teach me the falling blossom emotion used by the three great families? I heard it's a specialized high-level anti-domain technique. Gojo raised an eyebrow, a flash of surprise in his eyes, before he smiled. You certainly know a lot. Sure, I can teach you, but this one is quite difficult to master. He raised his hand, and the cursed energy around him flowed gently, forming a faint outline of a domain. Falling blossom emotion involves letting cursed energy form the silhouette of a domain. You don't expand it, you use it only for perception and defense, wrapping yourself in it like flower petals. The principle is actually simple. When a guaranteed hit technique within an enemy's domain is about to strike you, you release cursed energy to counterattack. Gojo explained the method of cursed energy circulation in detail. Rin committed it to memory, his fingertips quietly shifting his energy in trial. Suddenly, the familiar notification rang in his mind. Detected, Gojo Satoru has taught you the Zenin family secret, falling blossom emotion. Learn. Yes. Rin felt a surge of joy. He mastered the technique instantly but showed no sign of it on his face, continuing to act as if he were listening intently. He knew that exposing such learning speed too early would arouse Gojo's suspicion and wariness. He would have to reveal it gradually. Understand? Gojo patted his shoulder. Practice slowly. You can't rush this. Thank you, sensei. I'll work on it, Rin thanked him, his expression calm, showing no hint that he had already learned it. Over the next 2 weeks, Ren fully integrated into life at Jujutsu High. He sparred with Itadori, listened to Fushiguro quietly offer tips on Shikigami usage after training, and was dragged along by Nobara to complain about the cafeteria's bland curry. Occasionally, he participated in missions to exorcise low-level curses. During this time, he naturally obtained blood from Fushiguro and Nobara. When Fushiguro scraped his palm during training, Ren brushed his fingertips against it while handing him a tissue. When Nobara's arm was scratched by a curse, he took the opportunity to collect a small amount while helping her treat the wound. Back in his dorm, Ren locked the door and activated the blood source spirit technique. Fushiguro's blood transformed into a shadow-like Shikigami, allowing Ren to hide in shadows and shape the shadows into animals for attacks. Its strength was equivalent to a grade 1 curse. Nobara's blood condensed into a curse tool-type Shikigami that could swallow nails to generate resonance damage. Though its attack method was unique, it was only at a semi-grade 2 level. Meanwhile, the Dark Alliance was incredibly efficient. Over 200 members who had entered this world had infiltrated various jujitsu organizations, collecting a massive amount of sorcerer blood. Up to 50 chapters on P at Frieren, https://www.patreon.com/c/biggetl. Chapter 50, The Cursed Womb Must Die. 1,391 words. While organizing his Shikigami, Ren discovered that in addition to the Shikigami from Fushiguro's blood, he also had 2 Shikigami at the grade 1 level sourced from 2 veteran sorcerers. Furthermore, he had 28 grade 2 Shikigami, and the number of grade 3 and grade 4 ones was too high to count. It was enough to form a small Shikigami army. I guess I'm a mini Suguru Geto now, Ren thought. However, unlike Geto, whose cursed spirits were gone for good if they died, Ren could simply expend more blood to regenerate his based on the information stored in his bloodline. During this period, he saw Gojo Satoru several times. The Mun would occasionally ask him for intel on Kenjaku and sometimes launch sudden attacks to test him. Ren only displayed his Shikigami abilities. Relying on his improving close-quarters combat skills, he barely managed to withstand the tests, deliberately hiding the true strength of himself and his Shikigami. 2 weeks passed in a flash. On a rainy day in July 2018, the sky was so dark it felt as if it were pressing down on the earth. Ijichi drove a black luxury sedan, carrying Ren, Itadori, Fushiguro, and Nobara toward the Aishu Juvenile Detention Center in West Tokyo. The car slowed to a stop at the entrance. The cold iron gates looked particularly oppressive in the rain. Ijichi pushed open the car door, the rain soaking his suit trousers. He turned to the 4 of them. 3 hours ago, the window confirmed the presence of a cursed womb. 5 inmates are still inside the second dormitory, sharing space with it. If this cursed womb is the type that undergoes metamorphosis, it is highly likely to grow into a special grade curse. Special grade. Fushiguro Megumi repeated in a low voice, his eyes growing solemn as he subconsciously clenched his fists. Itadori looked bewildered. Is special grade that strong? Way stronger than a grade 1. Nobara rolled her eyes. Of course it's strong. To be classified as special grade, it has to be at a level where carpet bombing with cluster munitions would only result in a stalemate at best. Ren stood in the rain under an umbrella, looking at the grim detention center. He knew exactly what this was. This was a spiteful gift from the higher-ups to Gojo Satoru, and also Kenjaku's first step in testing Sukuna. However, this was likely the weakest special grade to ever appear. He glanced at the 3 beside him. Itadori was eager to go, Fushiguro was steady and guarded, and Nobara gripped her cursed tool bag tightly. Meanwhile, dark red cursed energy flowed quietly in Ren's palm. With 2 weeks of Shikigami reserves, he was more than ready for this tough battle. It was time to see how much he had grown. Let's go. Let's head inside and see, Ren said, taking the first step. Rain dripped from the edge of his umbrella, creating small splashes on the ground. Itadori pushed open the cold iron gates. The smell of rust mixed with the damp chill of the rain hit them. The moment the four stepped inside, the surrounding air suddenly stagnated. The originally modeled corridors warped out of nowhere. The paint on the walls peeled away in patches, and thick cursed energy spread through the air like spilled ink. This was an innate domain. The cursed womb had already turned this detention center into its own territory. This isn't right. This is an innate domain. Fushiguro immediately focused, his fingers forming a curse seal. The shadow behind him rippled slightly as he summoned the white divine dog. Be careful. We're only here for rescue. Kojisaki Nobara gripped her tool bag, nails at the ready as she looked at the ceiling. What the hell? Is this a masonette apartment? Itadori Yuji was full of fighting spirit, clenching his fists, and rotating his wrists, as cursed energy swirled gently around his knuckles. Thanks to Ren's tutoring, Itadori had mastered the use of cursed energy earlier than in the original timeline. Ren's gaze swept across the empty corridor. His cursed energy perception expanded, catching the restless yet immature energy deep inside, along with several flickers of life that had completely vanished. He said in a deep voice, "Let's split up. I'll go one way myself. If you encounter anything, call out immediately. Don't try to take it on alone. Trust me, I'm pretty strong," Ren added, giving Fushiguro a reassuring look despite the latter's obvious disagreement. He intentionally slowed his pace, letting the others get ahead. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Itadori, Fushiguro, and Nobara heading toward the left. Ren understood the situation. He lagged behind, keeping a distance that was neither too far nor too close. This would be enough to allow Itadori to face the coming encounter. He wanted Itadori to grow as much as possible. The stronger Itadori became, the more powerful the Shikigami obtained from synchronizing with his blood would be. Ren was very interested in Sukuna's power. Facing Sukuna directly wasn't realistic, but fleecing Sukuna through Itadori was a fine alternative. Not long after Itadori and Fushiguro moved forward, they found several cold corpses lying around a corner. They were the inmates, their faces distorted and their bodies mangled. Itadori stopped abruptly and rushed over to crouch down, reaching out to lift a corpse. "We have to take them out. We can't just leave them here. Don't waste time." Fushiguro's voice came suddenly. He and Nobara had caught up. Seeing the scene, Fushiguro frowned immediately. "Our primary goal is exploration and rescue. Carrying corpses will only slow us down. But his mother is waiting outside." Itadori looked up sharply, his eyes turning red as his altruistic nature flared. "Huh? Do you even know what this guy did? Driving without a license and hitting a little girl, and it was his second time." Fushiguro's tone turned cold. The two were instantly locked in an argument, while Nobara stood by, unsure how to intervene, her brow furrowed in anxiety. Ren leaned against a wall in the back, watching the two argue without saying a word. He knew this was a hurdle Itadori had to cross. The boy was too kind, but the world of sorcerers was never black and white. Maintaining that kindness as his core while he grew, not just in power, but in temperament, was what would lead to the future Tiger Emperor. Right then, a violent surge of cursed energy suddenly erupted. The ground shook and a pitch-black figure burst out. Cursed energy slammed toward them like a tidal wave as the finger-bearer appeared between the arguing pair. It had a humanoid form, with abnormally developed muscles that were twisted and knotted. Its skin was a pale bluish-white, covered in a fine web of black vascular patterns. Its two long, powerful arms ended in large palms with black claws, and bone spurs protruded from its joints. "Itadori, get back!" Fushiguro shouted, immediately summoning his Shikigami to engage. Nobara also whipped out her nails, infusing them with cursed energy and firing them at the entity. However, the finger-bearer's cursed energy was simply too overwhelming. The Shikigami was dispelled in a single blow, and the nails were deflected by a burst of energy. The entity reached out, grabbed Itadori by the collar, and slammed him violently into the wall. The concrete wall caved in instantly, and Itadori slumped to the ground like a broken kite. Rin watched Itadori's despair and fear. The heavily injured Itadori chose to cover their retreat, telling Fushiguro and Nobara to run while saying he would switch with Sukuna. Itadori collapsed and then crawled back up. The fear and regret in his eyes slowly faded, replaced by indignation and resolve. Rin knew the time had come. If he waited any longer and Itadori lost consciousness, Sukuna would be difficult to handle. In a flash, Rin appeared in front of Itadori. Dark red cursed energy condensed in his palm, as he raised his hand to block the finger-bearer's punch. Itadori, leave the rest to me. Follow my Shikigami and get to the entrance now. Itadori leaned against the wall to stand, staring at Ren's back while gasping for air. You actually blocked his punch. I couldn't even take one. Up to 50 chapters on P at Frieren, https://www.patreon.com/c/biggetl. Chapter 51, Shikigami Fusion. 1,377 words. I'll take it from here. It's better if you don't let that guy inside you out. Countless blood shadows surged around Ren. Watching the two of them chat while ignoring him, Daiten roared. Cursed energy erupted from his body as he launched a chaotic, disorganized assault toward Ren. With a wave of his hand, Ren used a Shikigami to move Yuji to safety. Immediately after, dozens of blood shadows streaked out from his sleeves, grade 2 Shikigami he had summoned. Some transformed into sharp blades for long-range slicing, some became shields to block attacks, and others circled behind Daiten for sneak attacks. These were Shikigami condensed from the blood of sorcerers he had collected previously. Each had a specific role, beginning a war of attrition against Daiten. Ren didn't expect these Shikigami, which were only at the strength of grade 2 cursed spirits, to deal significant damage to a special grade. However, they were more than enough to stall and wear him down. Though Dayton's cursed energy was immense, he only knew how to strike with brute force. Faced with Ren's refined cursed energy techniques, he found himself bogged down. With the agile swarm of Shikigami surrounding him, Daiten soon began to show signs of fatigue, his body covered in numerous wounds inflicted by the Shikigami. Had he not been a cursed spirit capable of rapid regeneration, he would have been ground down long ago. Even so, the aura of his cursed energy began to plummet. This guy is just a newborn cursed spirit with nothing but raw power. He just throws his cursed energy around blindly, he has no idea how to control it, Ren thought to himself. He moved with fluid footwork, evading Dayton's attacks while occasionally summoning a grade 1 Shikigami to land a supplementary blow, steadily draining Dayton's cursed energy. Seeing Dayton's aura grow weaker and weaker, Ren knew victory was in sight. He raised his hand and drew a dagger, slicing the veins in both his arms. Dark red blood surged out instantly, flowing down his fingertips. Thanks to his constitution's infinite hematopoiesis, the blood poured out like a waterfall. The blood pooled on the ground, forming a lake that encircled the remaining Shikigami. I'll use you to test the results of my accumulation over these past 2 weeks. But at that moment, Daiten suddenly let out a shrill, piercing roar. His cursed energy spiked abruptly, and a yellow-black tide of power swept outward like a tsunami. The entire innate domain shook violently. Countless dilapidated duplex buildings rose from the ground out of thin air, their walls crawling with pitch-black cursed filth. Innumerable shadowy, sinful humanoid figures swarmed out of the hallways, clawing and lunging toward Ren. Domain expansion, city of accumulated sins. He adapted to his innate domain this quickly. Is it the effect of Sukuna's finger? The cold, oppressive weight of the domain's pressure instantly enveloped the area. Ren felt his body grow heavy, and the circulation of his cursed energy became sluggish. He immediately mobilized his energy to manifest falling blossom emotion. Pale red cursed energy unfurled around him like flower petals, forming a thin defensive barrier. This was a secret technique of the Big Three families, specifically designed to counter the guaranteed hit techniques within a domain. Fortunately, I remembered this place would have a domain, and asked Satoru Gojo to teach me this in advance. Still, I didn't expect this cursed womb to manifest its domain so fast. Mahita was a newborn spirit too, but I recall it took him some time. Though Dayton's domain was unrefined, its power was undeniable. The shadows crashed against the counterattacking energy of falling blossom emotion like a tide, and gaps soon appeared in the level 1 counter technique. A shadow seized the opening, its claws tearing deep into Ren's abdomen. A sharp, searing pain followed as blood instantly soaked his school uniform. Ren staggered back a few steps, coughing up blood. The wound in his abdomen continued to seep, and the crushing pressure of the domain made it nearly impossible to breathe. This is bad. Time for a technique disclosure, then. Blood source spirit seed is. Ren began to mutter to himself, and the counterattacks of his Shikigami instantly grew a level stronger. During his time at Jujutsu High, he had already mastered this relatively simple binding vow and basic barrier techniques through the system's transmission mechanism. Ren watched the approaching shadows. The blood from his abdomen dripped onto the ground, merging with the blood he had spilled earlier. A memory of Megumi Fushigiro's composite Shikigami flashed through his mind, combining different Shikigami to achieve power far beyond their individual forms. His blood source spirit seed used blood as a medium, making it highly malleable. So why couldn't he use blood to fuse his Shikigami? The moment the thought occurred, Ren acted. Ignoring the agonizing pain, he pressed his hand against the abdominal wound and sliced the veins in his forearms again, letting even more blood gush out. He manipulated the blood with cursed energy, using it like ribbons to entwine the remaining Grade 1 and Grade 2 Shikigami. The Shikigami were originally formed from his blood. Now, drawn by these blood threads, they converged toward the center. Grade 1 and Grade 2 Shikigami intertwined. In a flash of dark red light, countless spirits fused together, their cursed energy fluctuations skyrocketing exponentially. Sensing the threat, Daiten roared and commanded even more shadows to attack. Ren looked up, his voice low and his eyes flashing with a sharp light. He thrust his hand toward the fusing mass, blood-hell confluence. An explosion of dark red light erupted, so bright it was blinding. Within the radiance, a massive Shikigami silhouette slowly took shape. It possessed the stout torso of a melee Shikigami, the bladed arms of a long-range type, the hardened carapace of a defensive type, and the streamlined limbs of a speed type. Dark red cursed energy swirled around it as blood-red veins pulsed across its body, and it let out a low, guttural growl. By applying Megumi's concept of composite Shikigami and using blood as the catalyst, Ren had created a new move by fusing all his remaining Grade 1 and Grade 2 Shikigami. This was an original derivation of his innate technique. The blood-hell Shikigami swung its bladed arm. With a single sweep, several shadows were instantly reduced to dust. It stepped forward, charging into the tide of shadows. The hardened carapace deflected all attacks while the heavy blades smashed into the shadows, causing them to dissipate into cursed energy. Under the assault of the blood-hell Shikigami, the city of accumulated sins began to tremble. Cracks appeared in the cursed seals etched onto the buildings. Ren watched his composite Shikigami, a faint smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. The pain in his abdomen persisted, but his fighting spirit was ablaze. Utterly enraged, Daiten charged forward himself. His cursed energy condensed into a massive shockwave, which he fired directly at the blood-hell Shikigami. The Shikigami didn't dodge. It raised its hands to meet the blast, unleashing a barrage of offensive techniques. Dark red and yellow-black cursed energies collided with a deafening roar. The duplexes within the domain began to collapse, and the pressure of the innate domain gradually weakened. Ren seized the opportunity to appear beside Daiten, his fist glowing with dark red cursed energy. The match was decided. Expanding a domain consumes a lot of cursed energy, doesn't it? Ren's fist, wrapped in dense dark red energy, slammed into Daiten's chest. That was the core of this newborn special grade spirit, the location of Sukuna's finger. A dull explosion rocked the corridor. Daiten's pale body froze instantly, and the surging yellow-black cursed energy receded like a retreating tide. The distorted energy shattered inch by inch. The massive body finally dissolved into a sky full of shimmering cursed energy fragments, vanishing completely. The moment the light faded, a deep gold treasure box appeared out of thin air on the floor. The box was engraved with intricate cursed seals and radiated an aura identical to Dayton's. Ren tore his clothes to bandage his wound, walked forward, and reached out to touch the treasure box. Up to 50 chapters on P at Frieren, https://www.patreon.com/c/biggetl. Chapter 52, Domain. 1,437 words. The treasure box opened silently. A deep golden light flowed out like a living thing, condensing in the dim corridor into a palm-sized, yellow-black crystal that pulsed with a faint radiance. Domain, source. Quality, gold. Description: the core essence of the domain formed upon the fall of the special grade cursed womb's metamorphosed form, Die 10. It contains the complete imprint of the domain, city of accumulated sins, and unknown domain source energy. Upon use, choose 1. Comprehend the prototype of your own domain. 2. Directly obtain the city of accumulated sins domain. Origin: Convergence World H08. Ren walked forward, clutching his bleeding abdomen. His fingertips brushed the warm crystal as he made his choice without hesitation. Option 1. Skills were things he could take out of this world. A domain like that one simply wasn't strong enough. The yellow-black crystal instantly transformed into a streak of golden light, sinking into the space between Ren's brows. A rich surge of domain source energy swept through his cursed energy pathways, intertwining with the energy of his blood source spirit seed. A vision suddenly erupted in his mind, a boundless world paved with blood-colored patterns. Countless Shikigami phantoms roamed and tumbled amidst the blood veins. Cursed energy and the essence of blood fused and swirled, forming the outline of a domain that belonged solely to him. "I'll call it Blood Canopy Splendor," Ren whispered, setting the name. The prototype of his own domain took root in his consciousness. Though not yet fully formed, he could already feel the heavy, oppressive majesty born of the union between blood and spirit. In his skill interface, a new entry appeared: Domain, Blood Canopy Splendor incomplete. Catching a glint in the cracks of the floor tiles out of the corner of his eye, he saw a finger shimmering with a faint red light. Its cursed energy fluctuations were subtle yet carried a domineering, malevolent air. It was Sukuna's finger. Ren bent down to pick it up. Its red tier, the domain core, was only gold. Ren understood then, in this world, perhaps only those few top-tier powerhouses would drop red-tier items. Holding the cold finger between his tips, a daring thought suddenly crossed his mind. He wasn't like the stubborn fools of the jujitsu world who were obsessed with witnessing Sukuna's full power. He had no desire to experience Sukuna at his peak. If he used a rocket to launch this finger into deep space, and let it drift through the cosmos, Sukuna wouldn't be able to collect his fingers. How would he ever return to his prime? But then he frowned. If he eventually killed the host of the other fingers, but couldn't reach the one in space, he wouldn't be able to wipe Sukuna out entirely. That would likely affect his final completion evaluation. It's not worth losing the highest rating. I'll keep it for now. Ren wrapped Sukuna's finger in the cursed tool cloth he had prepared, sealing it in layers of dark red cursed energy. If I reach my peak and still can't beat Sukuna, I'll try that trick then. He used his cursed energy to seal the wound on his abdomen, temporarily stopping the bleeding, and followed the lingering traces of cursed energy out of the corridor. Before he had gone far, he saw Megumi Fushiguro and Nobara Kujisaki standing guard over Yuji Itadori. Yuji had some internal injuries, but his spirits were high, as expected of the ultimate superhuman athlete. Seeing Ren approach, Yuji immediately ran to meet him. "Ren. Are you okay? What happened to the special grade?" "Managed to take care of it," Ren nodded, scanning the three of them. "Is everyone all right?" Nobara clicked her tongue at his blood-stained uniform. Her tone was as prickly as ever, but she couldn't quite hide her admiration. "Not bad, you. Soloing a special grade, you really are something." Since you saved our skins this time, I'll stop giving you a hard time. Megumi stepped forward, his eyes landing on Ren's abdomen. The wound looks deep. I contacted Gojo-sensei as soon as the curtain was lifted. He should be here any minute. The words had barely left his mouth when a familiar surge of cursed energy appeared. Satoru Gojo materialized at the end of the corridor. His 6 eyes, hidden behind his blindfold, scanned the surroundings before settling on Ren. A playful smile curled on his lips. Not bad at all, Ren. You're even more impressive than I expected. Winning your first fight against a special grade, and you've mastered Falling Blossom emotion, I see. Ren didn't bother with pleasantries. He pulled Gojo aside, away from the other 3, and got straight to the point. Gojo-sensei, you've probably already investigated the fact that the higher-ups have been infiltrated by Kenjaku. Sukuna is inside Yuji. The conservatives among the higher-ups definitely have their eyes on him, dying to get rid of him. Keeping him here will only lead to us being restricted at every turn. And what's your point? Gojo's voice turned cold as he lifted his blindfold slightly. Ren quickly laid out the plan he had prepared. Why not let Yuji die? Officially announced that he perished during this mission to exorcise the special grade. This will make the conservatives lower their guard and buy Yuji enough time to grow. It'll also give you more freedom to track Kenjaku and root out the traitors among the higher-ups. Gojo's smile returned. His cerulean eyes sparkled as he stared at Ren for a long moment before letting out a soft chuckle. You're a sharp one, aren't you? That's a good suggestion. I was actually thinking of taking Yuji somewhere to train him properly anyway, to help him master cursed energy. I have high hopes for him. You could try letting him release Sukuna more often for combat. The soul reflects the body, that might help Yuji master his innate technique faster. After agreeing, Gojo walked back to the group with Ren. He looked at Yuji, his tone casual but firm. Yuji, you're coming with me. We need to polish those skills of yours. The conservatives who wanted you executed were the ones behind this mission. You're going to die for a while, and then you'll make a comeback. Though Yuji was reluctant to leave his friends, he knew this was the best option. He nodded heavily, clenching his fists. Okay. Gojo-sensei, I'll train as hard as I can. The rest of you, remember to keep the secret. As of right now, Jujutsu High First Year Yuji Itadori is dead. Gojo turned back and struck a goofy pose for Megumi and Nobara. Rin took the chance to speak. Gojo-sensei, I have a request. If any more special grade cursed spirits appear, please make sure to call me. I have a feeling that participating in high-level battles will make me stronger. Sure, Gojo agreed instantly. But you have to stay reachable. Also, you owe me some Mitsuko Shisai cream chestnut daifuku from Ginza as thanks. The line there is always too long. With that, he draped an arm over Yuji's shoulder. In a flash, both of them vanished from the hallway. After Yuji left, Ren went to the school physician, Shoko Yeri, for treatment. Once he returned, he began to immerse himself in developing his innate technique, Blood-Source Spirit Seed. During this time, he also met the second years, Maki, Toge, and Panda. He trained in martial arts with them and managed to obtain their blood. Though it was a pity that Maki's blood couldn't produce a Shikigami, he was surprised to find that the Shikigami born from Toge Inamaki's blood had the strength of a grade 1 spirit and possessed the cursed speech technique. Ren continued to evolve his technique. He thought of the Sukuna who used the 10 shadows. His usage was completely different from Megumi's. Sukuna could manifest the water-spraying ability of Max Elephant alone to mimic piercing blood. He could even manifest Maharaga's Wheel of Adaptation by itself, borrowing its abilities without summoning the full Shikigami. Could my Blood Source Spirit Seed do the same? Instead of manifesting a full Shikigami or using Blood Hell Confluence to fuse them, could he manifest a single ability from a Shikigami for his own use? Once the seed of that idea took root, it grew wildly. Ren began spending his days and nights at the school's training grounds and the mountains behind the campus, repeatedly experimenting. He etched the blood imprints of different Shikigami onto his fingertips, using cursed energy to precisely draw out a single, specific ability from within them. Up to 50 chapters on P at Frieren, https://www.patreon.com/c/biggetl. Chapter 53, Iron Mountain Coffin. 1,478 words. During his previous battle with Tatian, the use of blood prison confluence had allowed his blood source seed spirit to successfully break through to LV2. After days and nights of relentless tempering and development, his control over his Shikigami abilities had grown increasingly adept. The blood patterns on his fingertips were more refined, and the level of his blood source seed spirit had quietly risen to LV3. Now, with just a thought, he could instantly borrow Nobara's resonance, Fushiguro's shadows, or Inumaki's cursed speech. There was no need to summon a complete Shikigami, and the consumption of cursed energy was significantly reduced. On this particular night, Ren was on a vacant lot on the back mountain, developing his technique. A thin line of blood patterns condensed on his fingertips as he attempted to fuse the speed of a Swift-type Shikigami with the power of others to enhance his close combat capabilities. Dark red cursed energy surged slightly around Ren's body. Suddenly, a phone rang. Ren paused his movements and opened his phone. The caller was none other than Satoru Gojo. A knowing smile tugged at the corner of Ren's mouth as he answered, "Gojo-sensei, is there a special grade already?" They agreed to meet outside the barrier of Jujutsu High. Just as Ren arrived, a familiar ripple of cursed energy appeared out of thin air behind him. Satoru Gojo leaned against a nearby tree trunk, his blindfold slid down slightly to reveal those piercingly clear, azure blue eyes. His tone held a hint of appreciation. "Not bad. Practicing hard even in the middle of the night, I see. Let's go. Next, we have to pick up a Dodori. I'll let him witness a domain expansion as well." The night was like thick ink spilled over the ruins of a deserted industrial zone. A scorching wind, carrying the scent of sulfur and scorched earth, howled past. The cracked asphalt glowed with a dull, burnt red. The special-grade cursed spirit, Jogo, stood in the center of a sea of fire. His volcano-shaped head spewed rolling black smoke, and lava-like cursed energy surged across his knotted frame. Every inch of his texture exuded a searing violence. Ren condensed blood patterns at his fingertips, a faint red cursed energy wrapping around his body like a veil as he fully activated the perception of his blood source seed spirit. Yuji Itadori clenched his fists, the cursed energy within him flowing steadily. Though tension was hidden in the boy's eyes, there was no longer any sign of recklessness. The two stood side by side behind Satoru Gojo, watching the sky-scorching flames before them. They even lightened their breathing subconsciously. "Satoru Gojo. Let's see if you're worth my effort." Jogo's roar was like exploding magma, shaking the surrounding dust and soot loose. Gojo had his hands casually stuffed into his uniform pockets. His posture was relaxed, yet he carried an aura that reigned over heaven and earth. His white hair fluttered lightly in the hot wind. From beneath his blindfold, his tone remained nonchalant, a lazy, wandering cadence that hid a confidence looking down on all things. "What's the rush? Before we fight, I'm going to give these two students of mine a lesson. Wouldn't want them lacking experience when they run into other special-grade cursed spirits later." Thoroughly enraged by this absolute contempt, Jogo violently threw his arms up. Flames erupted from the top of his head and his ears. Several crimson ember insects condensed out of thin air, swarming down like a scarlet rainstorm. Their bodies were wrapped in temperatures high enough to instantly melt through steel rebar. The sonic waves from their vibrating wings carried explosive shocks. The double threat of fire and sonic blasts instantly enveloped the entire battlefield. When facing an enemy, you have to analyze their technique. If you were facing him alone, you might accidentally be heavily injured by those sonic explosions. Gojo didn't retreat half a step. He didn't even pull his hands out of his pockets. He simply spoke his lecture, ignoring the explosions of the ember insects entirely. He turned his head toward Itadori and Ren. His azure eyes peeked through the gap in his blindfold, his tone as relaxed as if he were explaining basic theory in a classroom. No matter what the attack is, if it wants to touch me, it first has to complete the process of approaching infinity. The distance is infinitely stretched. So as you can see, it can never reach me. Seeing that long-range attacks were useless, Jogo refused to believe it. He charged forward, hands wreathed in flames, only to hit what seemed like a void mirror. Everything ground to a halt inches in front of Gojo, the flames igniting the air around him. However, the heat dissipated layer by layer, not even a trace of warmth reached the two behind him. Itadori's eyes went wide, and Rin was also slightly stunned. Even though he had known of Satoru Gojo's strength for a long time, actually seeing this ceiling of power in person was still breathtaking. How is this possible? Jogo's eyes were nearly splitting with rage. He frantically pushed his cursed energy, the flames on his hands growing thicker, yet he still could not breach that invisible barrier. Gojo finally pulled his hand out slowly, hooked his finger on the edge of his blindfold, and lifted it. In an instant, the Azure Six eyes were fully revealed to the world. Clear as a frozen sky, sharp as a divine eye descending to earth, they could pierce through all flow of cursed energy, the structure of techniques, and every inch of space's texture. The moment those eyes opened, the air across the entire battlefield seemed to freeze. Even the violent flames stalled. And techniques can be developed. For example, my Limitless has different applications. Gojo raised an index finger. Faint blue cursed energy condensed into a point of cold starlight at the tip. His tone remained casual. Curse technique lapse, blue. As the words fell, an extreme gravitational force erupted with his fingertip as the core. The fiery cursed energy around Jogo, the scorched earth on the ground, the heat waves in the air, and even Jogo's own cursed energy pathways were frantically pulled, compressed, and sucked inward. Lapse, blue was the ultimate forward rotation of cursed energy, drawing all power into a single point. Lapse is using cursed energy for convergence to create attraction. Gojo explained with a light smile. The blue light on his finger grew brighter. Jogo's massive body was pulled forward, he struggled with all his might but could not move an inch away. No matter how violent his cursed energy flames are, they cannot escape the gravitational pull of the Limitless. Without waiting for Jogo to scream, the blue light on Gojo's finger suddenly retracted. His tone was breezy as he let the next words fall. Curse technique reversal, red. Boom. The gravity that had been compressed to its limit instantly exploded, transforming into a world-ending torrent of reverse repulsive force. A faint blue shockwave swept across the 8 directions. All the flame barriers Jogo had condensed shattered like paper. His massive, lava-like body was violently blasted away, crashing through several layers of ruined walls as dust soared into the sky. Reversal is using cursed energy for divergence to create repulsion. Between convergence and divergence, there are many possibilities for technique development. Gojo withdrew his finger and tucked it back into his pocket. His posture was as graceful, as if he had merely flicked his sleeve rather than blasting away a special-grade cursed spirit. Itadori watched with a surging heart, clenching his fists and murmuring, "If only I could have a technique too." The blood patterns on Ren's fingertips vibrated slightly. He seemed to have some new ideas regarding his blood source seed spirit. Before the dust could settle, an even more violent surge of fiery cursed energy erupted. Jogo's body was covered in cracks overflowing with magma. He had staked everything on this one throw. He threw his head back and let out a heart-wrenching roar as his cursed energy rose to the sky like a tsunami. Go to hell. Domain expansion, coffin of the Iron Mountain. Boom. A pitch-black barrier rose to blot out the sky, sealing the entire area shut. Volcanoes erupted all around. The ground they stood on within the inner walls flowed with scorching lava. The temperature instantly climbed to an extreme that could vaporize water, and the space was completely locked down. The sure-hit, burning rules of the domain covered every inch. This was Jogo's exclusive domain. A closed killing field that used an inferno as a coffin and cursed energy as the walls to burn prey alive into ashes. An ordinary sorcerer would turn to dust in an instant. Up to 50 chapters on P at Frieren, https://www.patreon.com/c/biggetl. Chapter 54, Chapter 54, The one who laughs out loud isn't necessarily me. 1442 words. This is a domain expansion. Don't leave my side. Ren, did you see one when you exorcised that special grade before? Yes, that cursed spirit suddenly learned a domain, but the effect wasn't very strong. Even with Gojo in front of him, Ren still activated Falling Blossom emotion. Safety first. The intense heat made Ren's skin sting slightly. Itadori couldn't help but gulp, a burning sensation spreading across his body. But Satoru Gojo, standing in the very center of the domain, remained as calm as a breeze. His white hair glowed softly in the red light of the magma. His 6 eyes were cold and clear without a hint of gravity. He even turned to smile at the two of them as he continued his lesson. This is a very pure environmental, terrain-type domain. However, there are 3 ways to counter a domain. The third way is to crush it with an even stronger domain. He gave a light wave of his hand. Faint blue cursed energy circled him like flowing water. His tone was entirely composed. Let me show you a battle of domains. As he spoke, Gojo slowly raised his right hand. He crossed his index and middle fingers, tracing a clean, sharp mudra in front of him. His azure 6 eyes shimmered with light. His voice was as light as the wind, yet filled with absolute confidence. Domain expansion, unlimited void. There was no roar, no flash of fire. An absolutely clear, absolutely silent void of pale blue noiselessly swallowed the coffin of the Iron Mountain. The pitch-black coffin mountain vanished. The magma was extinguished, the heat dissipated, and only a world of pure, ultimate void remained between heaven and earth. Countless bits of information flowed like a galaxy, forcibly injected into Jogo's consciousness. My unlimited void is an information injection. Gojo walked slowly through the void, his posture as graceful as if he were treading on clouds. He patiently explained to the two behind him, who were momentarily dazed. It stuffs infinite information into the opponent's brain, stripping them of all action. They can't even manage a single twitch. But the person being controlled will think they know everything, only able to watch sadly as they die. Jogo stood frozen in the center of the void. His original rage and madness had vanished completely. His eyes were hollow and lifeless, his body was motionless. His consciousness was drowned in endless information. Moving a finger had become a luxury, he had been completely reduced to a puppet at someone's mercy. Gojo walked up to him, reaching out to place a hand gently on Jogo's neck. I'll leave you alive so you can tell me your goal. Judging by your boasting, you have people behind you, don't you? After all, intelligent cursed spirits are quite rare. Gojo held Jogo by the head with one hand. Faint blue cursed energy surged from his fingertips. Jogo's body instantly fractured, and his violent fire cursed energy dissipated like a floodgate opening. Only his head remained, which Gojo tossed onto the ground and stepped on to begin the interrogation. Unlimited void slowly retracted. The coffin of the Iron Mountain had left the surrounding area scorched, but the night had returned to its silence. I won't say anything. Damn you. Regaining his senses, Jogo could only scream with his remaining head, thick smoke billowing from his crown. Gojo pulled his blindfold back down, returning to his usual nonchalant demeanor. You're quite stubborn, aren't you? Rin picked up some of the purple blood from the ground. The blood patterns on his fingertips flowed quietly, but the technique did not react. Asterisk is cursed spirit blood no good. Still, this gave me a lot of ideas for a domain, asterisk. Domain, blood curtain splendor incipient, the word incipient had faded significantly. Jogo's head struggled feebly on the ground. His cursed energy sizzled against the earth. Humph. Even if I die, it doesn't matter. The one laughing out loud on the wilderness 100 years from now doesn't have to be me. It's enough as long as cursed spirits rise as the new humanity. Gojo tilted his head, his voice turning cold. For a cursed spirit, you certainly have big ideas. Ren stood to the side, the blood patterns on his fingertips twitching slightly. His gaze fell on Jogo as he began to calculate. If he spoke up and asked to be the one to finish Jogo off, he could rely on the contribution of the final blow to drop something good. He didn't even need to hope for something like Maximum Meteor. Even so, it would be a strong trump card to add to his collection. However, Ren also knew that Hanami would arrive soon to rescue Jogo. Should he step in and try to keep Hanami here as well? But that might break the plot. Ren had some reservations. After all, as long as the plot stayed within his control, he could reap significant benefits. But just then, a violent surge of cursed energy, far beyond imagination, suddenly swept in from the horizon. Asterisk whoosh. Whoosh, asterisk. The wind howled like a grieving ghost. The peaceful night was instantly torn asunder. The ruins of the abandoned industrial zone were caught in the gale, rubble, steel bars, and dust were swept high into the sky, turning into a sky full of lethal weapons. Gojo grabbed at Itadori, who was nearly swept away, while Ren circulated his cursed energy to resist. A pure, violent special-grade cursed spirit, condensed from endless wind pressure, slowly took shape within the eye of the storm. Its face was blurred and indistinct. Its upper body was exceptionally robust, while its lower body had no fixed form. It was shrouded in a hurricane that tore through everything, its cursed energy both brutal and pure. This cursed energy reaction was, without a doubt, a special grade. Another special grade cursed spirit. Yuji Itadori's pupils shrank, though having Gojo-sensei by his side allowed him to feel slightly relieved. Ren's face darkened instantly. The plot changed. Forest, earth, fire, and humans, the four great natural disasters. He knew the original for special grade cursed spirits like the back of his hand. Since when was there a special grade representing the gale? Given Japan's climate, could it be a typhoon disaster? There was absolutely no mention of this in the original story. Could it be? Ren's heart sank. He wasn't the only player with high-level gear to enter this convergence world. Other powerful individuals had entered this world as well. And the opponent had joined the cursed spirit faction at a natural disaster level. What kind of gear did they have? Mystic grade or earth grade? Oh, there sure are a lot of special grade cursed spirits around. Gojo looked up slightly, peering toward another special grade that was slowly appearing on the other side of the storm. Hanami stood silently within the gale, surrounded by cursed energy that interleaved vitality with withered decay. Its white body was covered in black markings that followed the lines of its muscles. Its gums were exposed at its mouth, and two tree branches curved upward at a 90 degrees angle where its eyes should be. Its left wrist was tightly wrapped in white cloth. It didn't attack. It just silently watched Jogo under Gojo's foot. The next moment, Hanami released a strange, soothing natural cursed energy. A field of flowers bloomed. It wasn't an attack but a manifestation of pity for life and nature. Within Gojo's Azure Six eyes, his killing intent flickered for a split second. That was the opening. Storm, Hanami spoke in a low voice. The new Gale special grade cursed spirit instantly unleashed its full power. The wind surged, transforming into a torrent of hurricane force that tore through heaven and earth, sweeping toward Itadori and Rin beside Gojo. Gojo let out a small sound of surprise, but he still formed a seal to strike at the gale. Curse technique reversal, red. In the end, he was concerned for his students' safety. This momentary diversion of his attack, combined with the gale cursed spirit's full power explosion, gave Hanami its chance. In a flash, it grabbed Jogo's head from the ground and turned to flee. Trying to leave. Ren's voice was cold. His cursed energy surged instantly. He realized that in this open world, the plot might not remain entirely within his grasp, giving him a sense of crisis. It seemed he needed to act more aggressively. These experts with high-level gear would undoubtedly interfere with the plot significantly. As he thought, he instinctively made his move. Up to 50 chapters on P at Frieren, https://www.patreon.com/c/bigtl. Chapter 55, Junpei Yoshino. 1,297 words. Ren pulled out a dagger and slashed his wrist, letting a torrent of blood pour onto the ground. Blood Origin Spirit Seed, Shikigami Fusion. From the pool of blood, a streamlined, razor-edged composite Shikigami rose and lunged toward Hanami. Right then, the aura of a massive number of cursed spirits erupted from the nearby residential area. Is it that guy? Gojo Satoru's eyes turned cold. The sudden appearance of so many cursed spirits at once made him think of only one person, his former best friend, Suguru Geto. But the one currently occupying Suguru Geto's body was. Gojo's gaze grew even frostier. He vanished in an instant, leaving behind only a single sentence. Ren, protect Itadori. Wait for me. At the same time, a violent hurricane surged, wrapping around Hanami and Jogo. They disappeared into the night in a flash, leaving the fused Shikigami to pursue them in vain. Flight, huh? Ren stood where he was, staring in the direction the wind had vanished, his brow furrowed. This was still just a probe. A powerhouse entering this world with high-level gear possessed far more possibilities than the original cursed spirits of this world. Furthermore, there was a chance the interloper was a melee specialist with combat techniques from other worlds similar to his flash strike. In a world as unhinged as this one, such a person might be incredibly formidable. And they had sided with the cursed spirit Calamity. Should he try to initiate contact for cooperation? No. Only Ren knew how greedy the players from the Convergence world really were. They didn't have his sentimental attachment to the original story. Anyone capable of earning a high evaluation was surely a standard fourth Calamity player. To them, the Convergence world was nothing more than a looting ground. Interesting. This is getting more interesting by the second. Ren's eyes flickered as a plan gradually formed in his mind. He waited with Itadori for Gojo to return, the two of them chatting idly. To Ren's satisfaction, Gojo had been letting Itadori release Sukuna for sparring sessions lately. As a result, Itadori had already begun to manifest Sukuna's curse techniques. Ren asked for a drop of blood, intending to synchronize it with his Shikigami once he returned. Before long, Gojo returned. He had pulled his blindfold back down, resuming his usual nonchalant demeanor, as he turned to the two of them. I'll drop you guys off in the city, and you can make your own way back. Oh right, Itadori, you can start taking missions through Ajichi soon. I've found a reliable junior to show you the ropes. Once enough time has passed, there's going to be a sister school exchange event with Kyoto Jujutsu High. You'll be able to return to the school officially then. Really? That's great. I've missed Fushiguro and Kojisaki like crazy, Itadori said, visibly excited. Ren gave a light chuckle and patted his shoulder. They miss you too. Kojisaki was asking about you a few days ago. I was actually quite surprised. A short while later, Ren and Itadori parted ways on the roadside. As the night deepened, Ren found a secluded clearing. The blood sigils on his palm glowed a dark crimson, as he manifested a Shikigami using Itadori's blood. Cleave and dismantle. That'll do. Ren felt the information transmitted by the blood Shikigami. He had it execute the techniques, carving a roadside boulder into pieces. He noted that the cursed energy consumption was surprisingly low. Quite a convenient and practical technique. Remembering his earlier thoughts, Ren began experimenting with molding the blood Shikigami into wings. After refining his new ideas, Ren returned to the Jujutsu High dorms. He set aside the Kyoto Sister School exchange event mentioned by Gojo for the time being. To him, that chaotic battle involving all the young sorcerers in Japan was certainly a good opportunity to harvest blood, but it wasn't his highest priority. In the plot he knew so well, there was a special-grade cursed spirit currently at its most vulnerable stage. If he missed this window, the price he would have to pay to handle it later would increase exponentially. That was Mahito, the special-grade cursed spirit born from the fear, hatred, and malice humans felt for one another. His innate technique, idol transfiguration, allowed him to directly touch and manipulate human souls, rewriting the shape of the flesh at will. It was one of the most bizarre and unsolvable abilities in the jujitsu world. If he could defeat Mahito and get idol transfiguration to drop, it would be incredible. More importantly, bringing such a top-tier technique out of this world would allow him to rapidly build his influence in the real world and mass-produce players. Rin knew that the current Mahito was far from the monster he would become, the one who would master the domain expansion, self-embodiment of perfection, and develop the instant spirit body of distorted killing. Before his encounter with Kento Nanami, he was merely a newborn cursed spirit constantly experimenting with soul power, possessing clumsy methods, and lacking even the skill to fully master his own shape-shifting. This was Mahito's weakest vacuum period. It was his best chance. Kenjaku's machinations, the future start of the culling game, and that suddenly appearing special-grade typhoon spirit. Rin was no longer planning to stick to the original plot. Letting events play out step by step was the optimal solution for harvesting resources and getting a high evaluation in a closed world, but in an open convergence world where other players were at the table, securing the benefits for himself first was the best move. Sitting at his desk, Rin opened the Dark Alliance contact site, the faint glow of the screen reflecting in his calm eyes. He tapped his fingers, sending a covert order to his subordinates in Kanagawa. Kanagawa Prefecture area. Search for a high school student suffering from bullying named Junpei Yoshino. Track his daily movements, mark cinema locations with high priority, and summarize all intel as soon as possible. When he woke up the next morning, an incredibly detailed report had been sent to Ren's phone. It seemed the rewards from the real world had made his subordinates highly efficient. The boy in the photo was thin, his eyes carrying a gloom and numbness that didn't match his age. Long bangs hid half of his face, and the emotions in his eyes, his entire being exuded an exhaustion born from being repeatedly ground down by life. Junpei Yoshino's family situation, school class, and recent movements were all clearly marked. Junpei Yoshino, subject to long-term bullying by classmates. Withdrawn and introverted. Aside from the members of the film club, he had almost no friends and rarely interacted with others. His only hobby was watching movies. At the end of the file, the specific addresses and operating hours of the theaters he frequented were attached. I think the movie was called Earthworm 3, right? Rin recalled the movie title from the original story, a faint smile playing on his lips. Mahito, make sure you show up on time. Mahito would contact the young Junpei, using false understanding and empathy to lure and mislead him into becoming a curse user to attack his school. Along the way, Mahito would also improve the boy's brain so he could perceive the shape of cursed energy. And that old movie theater should be the place where they first met. To be safe, Rin decided to tail Junpei personally to ensure he didn't miss it. Over the next few days, Rin left Jujutsu High and headed to Kanagawa Prefecture alone. He didn't reveal himself to Junpei. Instead, like a patient hunter, he hid around the perimeter of Junpei's school and began continuous observation. Up to 50 chapters on P at Frieren, https://www.patreon.com/c/biggetl. Chapter 56, Limitless Malice. 1,313 words. In the early morning, Rin watched Junpei enter the school gates alone, pointedly avoiding the crowds as he walked toward the furthest corner of the classroom. During break, Rin stood in the shade of a tree outside the school building. He watched 3 boys and a girl surround Junpei, beating him, mocking him, stealing his money, and even forcing him to eat a cockroach. Rin closed the essentials of barrier techniques he had been reading. The malice before him made him feel a sense of revulsion. He understood now why cursed spirits were never ending in this world, and why Mahito was born from the malice humans held for one another. If I cut off the source of these spirits, could I get a heaven-grade evaluation? Ren thought about how the Jujutsu Kaisen sequel failed to stop the constant birth of spirits. He began to ponder if there was a way to earn an even higher evaluation upon extraction. The boy's brave verbal retaliation only earned him even more horrific malice in return. When the dismissal bell rang, the others walked off in laughing groups. Only Junpei, carrying a heavy backpack, walked despondently at the back of the crowd. His drooping bangs hid the ugly cigarette burns on his forehead. The suppressed pain, the unvented resentment, and the loathing for everything around him flowed from the boy's body like a steady stream, turning into the most basic cursed energy of this world and dispersing into the air. Human negative emotions were the source of cursed energy birthed cursed spirits hunted humans. The death and fear of humans, in turn, fueled the birth of even stronger cursed spirits, like Mahito. It was a perfect, unbreakable dark cycle. Interfering with Junpei's ordeal now would likely disrupt his growth trajectory and ruin the harvest window Ren was meticulously waiting for. However, Ren couldn't just stand by and do nothing after witnessing such sickening malice. He casually commanded a Shikigami to snatch a few low-level cursed spirits and attach them to the bullies. They wouldn't be getting any decent rest for the few days they had left to live. An idea began to take shape in Ren's mind during a long afternoon of contemplation. Asterisk if I do it that way. It might just be worth a try, asterisk. After the bullying, Junpei stopped going to school. Finally, a few days later, the boy left his home. He bypassed the busy main roads and took a secluded path toward the cinema. From a distance, Ren could clearly sense a cold, twisted, and malicious aura beginning to linger quietly within the theater. Asterisk that must be Mahito's scent. You certainly kept me waiting. Asterisk Ren closed his book on barriers and flexed his knuckles. I was forced to watch a lot of disgusting malice because of you. The optimal moment was right in front of him. About an hour and a half later, a slender figure with blue hair tied in sections over his shoulder strolled out of the cinema entrance. Mahito. He wore loose clothing, his body covered in stitches, exuding a nauseating cursed energy condensed from pure human malice. There was no sense of good or evil in his eyes, only a primitive curiosity and a desire to toy with human souls. He looked around after stepping out, then vanished into an alleyway with a light step. Ren still didn't move. In a busy area like this, it would be too easy for Mahito to cause a massive scene and escape. The cinema's wooden door pushed open again, and Junpei stepped out, looking around for something. He followed Mahito's trail, actively approaching the spirit and striking up a conversation. Perhaps at first, Junpei was merely chasing something macabre, or seeking the thrill of potential revenge. But as they talked, Mahito accurately pierced the vulnerable spots in his heart. With bewitching words, he began to dismantle the boy's final defenses piece by piece. As time ticked by, dark clouds gradually blanketed the city. The two walked side by side, moving away from the busy districts and heading toward a deserted area. Ren slowly stood up, the dark red blood sigils on his fingertips beginning to swirl. He followed them soundlessly, maintaining a careful distance and observing them through binoculars. After all, a direct cursed energy probe might alert Mahito. This sensation, however, gave Ren a strange sense of déjà vu. It felt like he was back to the time he was hunting Aura. So, Mahito, are you going to drop something red for me? Don't let me down. Eventually, Mahito led Junpei into the entrance of a long-abandoned sewer. It was dark, damp, and reeked of rot. Dense cursed energy permeated the enclosed space. The surroundings were desolate and silent, save for the occasional rustle and the distant sound of flowing water. Mahito was excitedly showing Junpei the existence of transfigured humans, his fingertips gathering a faint cursed energy as he traced the outlines of souls, his tone full of mockery and curiosity toward human life. Junpei stood there, staring at the massive, humanoid aberrations before him. His eyes were complex, holding a trace of bewilderment. He didn't yet know that this person, who seemingly understood his pain, was a special-grade cursed spirit that fed on human malice and viewed human life as a toy. Just as Mahito was getting into the swing of things, preparing to lead Junpei further astray, he suddenly glanced back. A voice filled with disgust yet carrying a cold pressure echoed through the desolate sewer. Mahito, don't go corrupting the kid. I've been waiting for you for a long time." The moment the voice fell, Ren stepped slowly out of the shadows of the sewer entrance, a faint heat in his eyes. Dark red cursed energy flowed around him like fine veins. With the blood sigils on his fingertips clearly visible, Ren stared at the special grade spirit ahead. In the cavernous sewer, there was only him, Mahito, and a stunned Junpei Yoshino, who had no idea what was happening. No bystanders, no interference, no lingering concerns. Mahito slowly turned his head. His eyes beneath his blue hair narrowed as he sized up the sudden intruder. A pure, malicious smile curled on his lips, and his tone was as light as a casual greeting. "Oh my, did the residuals I purposefully left at the theater draw you here? You're faster than I thought. But from the sound of it, maybe you've been stalking me for a while." Mahito put a finger to his lips with an air of mock innocence, pretending to think. Ren ignored his nauseating display of feigned innocence. His calm gaze swept over Mahito and landed briefly on the bewildered Junpei, though he offered no explanation. It was only the sentiment from the original story and the pity stirred by the last few days of observation that made Ren care at all. But if he showed that he cared, Mahito would sense it and use the boy as a hostage. Thus, ignoring him was the best stance. Ren looked up, meeting Mahito's eyes. The dark red cursed energy around him suddenly began to boil. He slashed both wrists, letting a massive amount of blood pour out. Blood origin spirit seed. Numerous blood shikigami rose from the pool of gore, adding a layer of eerie gloom to the atmosphere. Blood origin spirit seed, cursed speech. Suffer diarrhea. The shikigami that released the cursed speech command couldn't withstand the backlash and burst with a pop, beginning to gestate again in the pool of blood. Even Mahito, who was notoriously fickle and emotionally volatile, felt a moment of blank confusion in his eyes. He felt his body, the body of a cursed spirit, suddenly start to cramp with abdominal pain, followed by a powerful, undeniable urge to go. Up to 50 chapters on P at Frieren, https://www.patreon.com/c/biggetl. Chapter 57, Fierce Battle with Mahito. 1,316 words. The air in the deathly silent sewer suddenly froze. "You've got to be kidding me." The light-hearted, playful smile on Mahito's face slowly faded, and the eyes beneath his blue hair were filled with a momentary blankness. As a cursed spirit, how could he possibly perform a human act like excretion? If he weren't a cursed spirit, born from human malice, he quickly realized that the man before him was mocking him. The confusion in Mahito's eyes was gradually replaced by a cold, sharpened malice. Furthermore, he could clearly perceive that the cursed energy surging through this sudden human intruder was far beyond that of an ordinary sorcerer. The man's aura was steady yet violent, carrying an undisguised intent to kill. He had originally wanted to have a nice chat with whatever jujitsu sorcerer came chasing after him. How truly boorish. Junpei Yoshino stood completely paralyzed, his face deathly pale, and his body trembling uncontrollably. He instinctively scrambled toward a nearby clearing. He had only just learned of the existence of cursed spirits and jujitsu sorcerers from Mahito. Before he could even process this reality-shattering truth, he was dragged into a battle that was entirely beyond his comprehension. He watched as countless monsters crawled out of the pool of blood surging before Ren, then looked back at Mahito, whose aura had shifted into something spine-chilling and frigid. Terror washed over Junpei like a tidal wave, making even breathing a struggle. Ren ignored Junpei's fear. His entire focus was locked onto Mahito. Ren made a cold, rational assessment. Asterisk, don't get close. Whatever happens, don't let Mahito touch me, asterisk. He was well aware of the horror of idol transfiguration. Even if it was used in its most rudimentary form, a single touch would allow Mahito to rewrite the soul at will. There wouldn't even be a chance to resist. The difficulty in fighting Mahito lay in the fact that one had to be able to strike the soul to deal damage. Otherwise, the only options were to exhaust his cursed energy entirely, or obliterate him in a single strike. Although Mahito could not yet use self-embodiment of perfection, or instant spirit body of distorted killing, the innate regenerative power of a cursed spirit was still troublesome. Physical attacks that couldn't reach the soul were utterly meaningless against him. Moreover, as a newborn cursed spirit, Mahito evolved rapidly. He could very well grow stronger in the heat of battle. But Ren was not one to do things in vain. Straw doll technique. The blood flowing from Ren's wrists coalesced into a small hammer and nails. By chance, he possessed the power of two of Mahito's natural enemies, Nobara Kujisaki's straw doll technique, resonance, and Sukuna's dismantle, inherited by Yuji Itadori, which was capable of slashing the soul. Though Ren could not yet perceive the soul well enough to use dismantle effectively, Kujisaki's innate technique would suffice. This doesn't look good. Are we really going to fight? Mahito tilted his head, his tone still carrying a hint of innocent playfulness, but the cursed energy surrounding him began to churn frantically. The way you're acting, you're looking down on me, aren't you? Before his voice even trailed off, several twisted transfigured humans slid from Mahito's sleeves. He gripped them between his fingers and flicked them forward. Sensing the lingering scent of humanity, Ren instantly retreated, watching as the faces on the creatures wailed in agony. Please kill me. Ren's gaze hardened and his expression grew dark. It was a truly wretched and disgusting method of combat. In that split second, Mahito seized the moment of Ren's distraction. He transformed his legs into hooves and charged forward with a sudden burst of speed. Ren immediately commanded a group of Shikigami to move forward and block the path. Unless he possessed the seasoned cursed energy control of someone like Nanami, who could protect his soul with a shroud of energy, being touched by Mahito meant certain death. At almost the same instant Ren deployed his defensive Shikigami, several twisted protrusions suddenly exploded from the ground beneath his feet. It wasn't a cursed energy blast, but more transfigured humans. Mahito had used idol transfiguration to prepare these creatures in advance, planting them within the sewer pipes. One after another, the grotesquely deformed transfigured humans lunged at Ren with guttural roars. Their wails served as a form of mental pollution even as they unleashed their physical attacks. These creatures were highly malleable. Mahito reshaped them at will, using them to block every possible path of retreat. Oh my, this is a little game I recently learned. You should enjoy the show. Soul multiplicity, body repel. Blocked by the defensive Shikigami, Mahito stood his ground with his hands behind his back, looking on like a spectator. His tone was light, but he took the opportunity to launch a finishing blow. At this stage, he had not yet mastered the essence of transforming his own body, so he relied on using transfigured humans as his primary weapons. By merging two or more souls, he triggered a rejection reaction that caused their mass to explode outward, launching a devastating projectile at Ren. A cold glint flashed in Ren's eyes. He swung the hammer of the straw doll technique and unleashed a flash strike. Flash strike. The force of the hammer blow was so immense it actually batted the incoming projectile right back at Mahito. Seeing the attack fail, Mahito, who was already being hindered by the swarm of Shikigami, immediately backed away. Now was the chance. Blood Origin Seed Soul, activate. As the low murmur fell, the blood sigils in Ren's palm suddenly flared. Dark red cursed energy surged from the pool of blood like a rising tide. Dozens more blood shadows rose from the crimson depths, instantly filling the entire sewer. Following the hand signs associated with Megumi Fushiguro's blood-infused Shikigami, countless blood shadows merged into the darkness, waiting for the opportunity to launch a sneak attack. The move left Ren panting. Although his current loadout provided a significant amount of cursed energy, manifesting two large-scale Shikigami summons in a row was a massive drain. I'll kite you to death. The Shikigami in blade form cut through the air, the Scorch form Shikigami controlled the field to interfere with Mahito's movements, and a large number of shadows lunged from the darkness in surprise attacks. These Shikigami, formed from the blood of various sorcerers, each performed their specific roles, clashing with the swarming transfigured humans. The sound of metal clashing, the explosions of colliding cursed energy, and the roars of the puppets echoed through the enclosed sewer, causing dust to rain down from the ceiling. The transfigured humans crawled relentlessly from the ground, but Ren's Shikigami were equally inexhaustible. Because of the Shadow Shikigami, Mahito finally made a mistake. On a battlefield where dark red shadows and twisted puppets tore at each other, and aftershocks of cursed energy flew in all directions, a streamlined, blade-headed Shikigami lunged from the shadows. With a single, swift strike, it severed Mahito's forearm. Oh! How interesting. Hide and seek in the shadows. Too bad it's useless. Mahito's arm twitched and warped, growing back in an instant. Ren stood in the center of the fray, his expression calm. His fingers moved constantly, manipulating his cursed energy to pull the Shikigami back and forth with precision. He commanded one Shikigami to collect the piece of flesh Mahito had dropped. His goal now was to drain Mahito's cursed energy and wear down his patience. He wanted to make Mahito believe the damage being dealt was trivial, tricking him into losing even more pieces of his body. Wow, you really have a lot of little toys, don't you? Mahito looked at the overwhelming sky of blood shadows pressing down on him. A hint of surprise flashed in his eyes, followed by an even greater surge of excitement. Up to 50 chapters on P at Frieren, https://www.patreon.com/c/biggetl. Chapter 58, Black Flash. 1,407 words. Interesting, truly interesting. I've never seen a curse technique like this before. And you're not exactly a pure human, are you? With that much blood loss, a normal person would have died several times over. Still, I wonder how much longer your cursed energy can hold out. What will your soul look like, I wonder? I'll have to make sure I touch it when the time comes. Mahito raised his hand excitedly, white light surging from his palm. He unleashed an even greater number of transfigured humans, their numbers doubling as their offensive grew increasingly feral. Several transfigured humans broke through the Shikigami defensive line, their sharp claws lunging straight for Ren's face. Ren tapped his foot lightly, his body shifting like a phantom to evade the strike. Simultaneously, a streak of blood condensed at his fingertip. He manifested a single instance of Yuji's dismantle, instantly cleaving through the transfigured human's torso. Dark red cursed energy erupted, and the creature disintegrated into two pieces. His close-quarters martial arts, honed through 2 weeks of high-intensity refinement, had long since surpassed that of ordinary sorcerers. Combined with the agility of his speed-type Shikigami, Ren's movements were elusive, allowing him to weave through the dense attacks and counterattack with composure. You dodge quite fast, don't you? Mahito's tone was light, but he was gradually losing his patience. His stockpile of transfigured humans was nearly exhausted, and his own limbs had been repeatedly severed or bitten off by the Shikigami. He realized that these blood shadow Shikigami were inexhaustible. His high-level transfigured humans couldn't kill them, he would have to step in personally. No matter how many Ren destroyed, the human before him would simply manifest more. Furthermore, Ren's blood loss seemed to have no impact on him. While Mahito was running out of pawns, most humans died the instant they were transfigured. Ren's formidable stamina and endurance completely negated Mahito's numerical advantage. What made Mahito even more wary was Ren's fighting style. He wasn't sure if Ren simply preferred to win through attrition without putting himself at risk, or if Ren actually knew about idle transfiguration, and was intentionally maintaining a safe distance to deny him any chance of contact. In that case, the smile at the corners of Mahito's mouth grew colder as cursed energy suddenly coalesced around him. I'll just destroy all of these little toys of yours. The stifling heat of the battle sparked a sudden flash of inspiration, bringing his mastery over transfigured humans to the next level. He activated idle transfiguration on the last few humans in his possession. Soul multiplicity, holomorphic isomer. A humanoid puppet with a presence far exceeding that of an ordinary transfigured human abruptly took shape. This was a high-level construct created by fusing souls that possessed weak rejection reactions. It swung its arms, scattering the Shikigami. Every time it struck the surrounding pipes, the entire sewer vibrated violently, leaving massive cracks in the ground. A flicker of killing intent flashed in Ren's eyes. Asterisk, he's evolving again. I can't let this drag on, asterisk. He recognized this move. It was a super-aggressive transfigured body created by burning through multiple lives in an instant. In the original story, it possessed enough explosive power to send Aoi to do flying with a single blow. The polymorphic isomer swept its arm across, smashing several Shikigami into blood mist instantly. Ren's expression darkened slightly. He couldn't continue a war of attrition. His cursed energy was finite, and Mahito's rate of growth was far exceeding his expectations. Bloodline Seed Soul, manifest. As his low command fell, two blood shadows more solid than the rest emerged from behind Ren. Their cursed energy spiked, reaching the level of Grade 1 curse spirits. The two Grade 1 Shikigami lunged forward, meeting the giant transfigured human head-on. A thunderous roar erupted once more. The strength of the Grade 1 Shikigami was enough to forcibly withstand the giant's onslaught. Mahito seized this fleeting gap, his figure vanishing from his spot. Closer. Even closer. A grin spread across Mahito's face, as white light flared at his fingertips. He reached out to touch Ren without hesitation. As long as he touched him, he could rewrite his soul and desecrate his flesh. This was Mahito's most lethal killing move. Ren's eyes were sharp as blades. He pivoted his body and threw a punch the moment they were about to collide. At that instant, all stray thoughts vanished. Muscles, breath, and cursed energy synchronized perfectly. He hit the timing with precision. Cursed energy that seemed to swallow light exploded from his knuckles, distorting the air in a momentary roar. There was no thought, only instinct. Black flash. It was the ultimate resonance between a sorcerer and power. Mahito let out a muffled groan, his body forced backward. For the first time, a look of genuine astonishment appeared on his face. You. Mahito looked at Ren in disbelief. An attack like that. Ren stood his ground, blood sigils roiling around him. His breathing was steady, and he was completely unharmed. He looked at Mahito, his voice calm and tinged with cold mockery. Mahito, is that all you've got? If so, then you've already lost this fight. As he spoke, Ren activated his technique again to manifest the hammer tool from the straw doll technique. Mahito looked at him, maintaining that same innocent yet cruel smile as he lightly raised a finger. Let's keep going, then. Inside the sewer, cursed energy raged as the battle intensified. The deathmatch between Mahito and Ren had only just entered its climax. Ren had indeed entered a profound state. In that previous moment, the world had seemed to stretch infinitely before suddenly snapping tight. Now he was in a state of absolute flow. It was like an athlete entering the zone, everything outside slowed down. His opponent's movements, the flow of cursed energy, the very folds of space were as clear as the lines on his palm. The fine control that usually required intense concentration now felt as natural and instinctive as breathing. Inspiration for his curse techniques poured forth from the depths of his mind like an endless spring. Ren kicked off the ground, his figure blurring backward. Operating at full cursed energy, he became a flickering shadow among the stone pillars of the sewer, constantly repositioning and pulling Mahito along. Bloodline Seed Soul, Straw Doll Technique, Resonance. Ren condensed dark red curse sigils at his fingertips and reached into the void, grasping a newly formed nail. This was the ability he had extracted from Nobara Kujisaki's blood, Resonance. It didn't rely on physical contact or a direct clash of techniques. Instead, it used cursed energy as a nail for a long-distance soul strike. In the original series, this was the very move that had caused Mahito so much suffering. Mahito's offensive was fierce, and the sewer space was narrow, yet Ren's positioning was exceptionally cunning. He always managed to evade Mahito's lunges at the absolute limit of the distance. Ren remained focused. He stayed back, refusing to close the distance, as resonance nails emerged like bamboo shoots after rain. At this moment, Ren poured all the power of Bloodline Seed Soul LV.3 into them. Dozens of highly condensed cursed energy nails manifested behind him, turning into a crimson rain of arrows. He held nothing back. He showed no mercy. Go. Ren brought his hammer down hard against the nails. From the shadows beneath him, numerous body parts that had been severed or bitten off from Mahito during the earlier skirmishes emerged. The nails were aimed precisely at these fragments of Mahito's body. Mahito felt a faint, indistinct threat, but he laughed anyway. After that last strike, he felt like he was starting to understand. He lunged forward with another punch. A Shikigami tried to block him, but he punched right through it, a black flash. Mahito's talent, rooted in the human spirit, was on full display. He too had felt it, that limit where one touches the timing of cursed energy. He instantly pierced through the Shikigami and charged straight for Ren, but in the next heartbeat, the dark red cursed nails tore through the air. There was no earth-shattering explosion, only a sharp sensation that pierced the soul as they erupted from within Mahito's body. Mahito dazed for a moment, blood spraying from his eyes, nose and mouth. Asterisk, how is this possible? He can reach my soul, asterisk. Up to 50 chapters on P at Frieren, https://www.patreon.com/c/biggetl. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Novels Wonderland.